know, I mean, he did what he had.
Mr. Vito.
You're a Renaissance man.
You need to know though. Okay. I got unfamiliar faces. I gotta make sure. Where'd she go?
Who? Patty? She's in the TV room.
No, I'm not. I got board members that are. That's what I'm looking for. Right there, there's my production guy. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to an advance notice of and to attend meetings of public bodies of which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provision of this act, the Riverdale Regional Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be publicized by having the date, time, and place thereof sent to the Record, Town News, and/or Star Ledger newspapers, the constituent borough clerks and borough libraries, as well as posting in the school district's principal's offices, faculty rooms, and board office. According to New Jersey Public Law 2001, Chapter 226, the smoking of tobacco is strictly prohibited any place in the public school buildings or anywhere in school grounds, including but not limited to the parking lots, grassy areas, and athletic fields. Violators will be subject to a fine not to exceed $100. Roll call. Roger.
Here.
Stephanie.
Here.
Patty.
Here.
Claudia.
Here.
Paul.
Stepped out.
Dot.
Here.
Michael.
Here.
Vito.
Present.
And Joe.
Here.
Marissa.
Here.
Nick will not be with us tonight.
Okay. Roger. We have very few left with you, so would you please mind?
So why don't we just save them for other people?
Read the mission of the Riverdale Regional School District, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
To provide a safe, student-centered environment in which each student is valued and respected, to challenge each student to reach his or her potential, to nurture every student's intellectual, social, physical, and emotional growth, to promote a healthy work ethic, a passion for learning, and a respect for oneself and others, to develop responsible citizens for a diverse community in an ever-changing world, to continue to involve our community in an active partnership, and to provide all students the opportunity to achieve and exceed the New Jersey core curriculum standards.
Content standards. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that. At this point, if there are any public comments on the agenda items only at this point, making note that if you please come to the microphone, identify yourself. Again, on the agenda items, there is an opportunity later for further discussion or points to be made by the public. Sir?
Mike Gardner from Ordell. Mr. Fletcher, I'd like to thank you for your speedy addressing my information request. I requested information on Thursday, and I believe 4:30 Friday, it was emailed to me, and I appreciate your getting back to me so soon. My following statements relate to items 2, 3, 4 within personnel section of the agenda, and items E3 of the appointments section of the agenda. Taking into account the recent reports and comments that if you review the comments on the Riverdale patch about our district's decline in rankings, I think Mr. Bonfiglio's position change should not be a priority at this time, and as such, should be tabled. And things we have to look at, if you review some of this information, does a 2-school district need an assistant superintendent position? Given the fact there are only 11 assistant superintendents, non-business, in Bergen County. And there's only 4 business-related assistant superintendents in Bergen County. And another issue that we should look at, or the board should look at, is if you look at the contract, the board, if it approves it tonight, will agree to pay an assistant superintendent an amount that exceeds the statutory regulatory amount set for a superintendent for a district of our size based on our current enrollment numbers. So this is going to be an issue down the road when Mr. Fletcher's contract is up. As the Riverdale patch pointed out, once a contract is up for renewal, then the statutory regulatory amounts that are set forth for superintendents will come into play. So you're going to be paying an assistant superintendent more than what the superintendent would be allowed by law, which doesn't make much sense. Our economic, fiscal responsibility. Unemployment rate right now in the state of New Jersey is Bergen County is 8.9%. In the state of New Jersey, it's 9.6%. The current foreclosure rate of homes in Bergen County is approximately 2,400 homes. Yet, this board, if it passes this agenda item, will be granting an employee a $3,000 increase. Is that the message we want to send to the taxpayers of River Ridge or Oradell at this time? I think not. I respectfully request that the board table this item and let's address our school ranking, and this is something that can be looked at a later date. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any, excuse me, are there any other comments on agenda items from the public at this time? Okay, seeing as there are none at this point, we'll move on to our reports. First up, student member report.
Okay, so not much going on right now because it's the beginning of school, but we have, everybody got their laptops today at school, all the grades did. We have a pep rally coming up next week to celebrate the beginning of the fall season for all the sports, and as you guys might know, the football team won their first game. And so basically we just have a lot of openers for all the sports coming up. So, and there's this.
Brings us to our president's report. Not much to report other than welcome back to the RDTV people here, the students. Welcome back to the public, to our fall sessions. One of the things that I was lucky enough to attend was one of the opening days for the teachers, where the Riverdale PTO gave the teachers a nice breakfast. There was a presentation put on by Mr. Lang in regards to the HIB, which is the harassment, intimidation, and bullying standards that need to go on. Teachers seem to be in a very good mood, ready for a new year. Being around some of the students and all too, on Friday night, there was like you mentioned, the football game. It was on MSG as well. It was kind of nice just to see that the community was out in force at the school. So it was nice to see that the school year is beginning off in a good year. And actually, just a little aside, I was out watching my daughter's soccer game, and had a former Riverdale graduate have a friend whose daughter was also playing another sport, who graduated about 18 years ago. And it was just nice to hear that she said, geez, it's really nice. She says, a lot of this stuff wasn't here when I was here 18 years ago, and it's just really nice to see the facilities are really, are first class. And I forgot which school her daughter was at, but she just said, geez, it's really nice to see, that my alma mater, if you will, is such a nice place. So just thought I'd share that little tidbit, because it was nice to hear that instead of all the negative at times, or that every once in a while there is some positive. Mr. Fletcher?
Thank you. I would also like to extend warm welcome to everybody coming back for the opening of the 2012 school year. Just to put a little finer point on it, we started distributing laptops today. They will continue tomorrow. So some students who didn't get it today, don't panic, they're coming tomorrow. And then there's always, when you're going through this large of a rollout, there's always a couple of issues that will come down the pike. There's staff here to help. Once the high school process has been completed, you'll start to see deployment of some more machines in the middle school. There will be machines like, I would say, mini lab kind of a concept in each of the rooms, which will make it available for students and teachers to use more technology in the middle school. I hope this also will eventually put us in a good position to be able to deal with the infrastructure requirements that are going to be coming down our way when we move to the new assessment system at the state of New Jersey. Is putting forward called PARC, P-A-R-C-C. As that rolls out, that's supposed to be online assessments. Those online assessments will be administered through a computer infrastructure. And what I'm looking forward to when it comes to that process is that at least the initial description is that we will get meaningful data turned around to us in a reasonable period of time that you can actually use it. As an example, Mrs. Duran had contacted me earlier today about some test scores, and all we have so far from the test scores that were administered in the spring of last year are what we call the individual student rosters, which means that if Pat Fletcher took the exam and Mr. Manzelli took the exam, I know what I score. I know what Pat Fletcher scored. I know what Mr. Manzelli scored. But all those other reports that you see, which are used for comparisons in the Bergen County and in the state, they haven't been released yet. So the data that we have is us going through the individual reports going, this is where we're at. Regardless of when we receive those other reports, I do plan on having our annual testing report at the next board meeting, which is the 24th, I believe, is 2 weeks from tonight. We did, I don't think it was mentioned here, but we did have new teacher orientation the week prior to school opening. We have a relatively large class of new teachers coming in, and they are coming in because we've added positions to the district, as well as having people on maternity leave, et cetera. So there were about 14 new bodies, if you will, that are going to be circulating around the buildings in both the middle school and the high school. The students came back on Wednesday the 5th, and it's been, in both buildings, a relatively smooth opening. We have had very few issues related to students moving from one place to another. However, having said that, please be aware that the first couple of days now, or the week that passed, and the first couple of days that we have now, things are still settling down. There are still some movement in the classes. There are still some people who are dropping an AP class and picking up an honors class. We did begin a new program at the middle school with a second section of LLD. When those kids are factored into their non-disabled peers, there are going to be some issues that we need to resolve, but that takes a little time during the beginning of the school year. Having said all of that, with the interruption that we're going to have next week because of a couple of days off, et cetera, it really comes back down to, after doing this for a number of years, the school district generally settles down 3 weeks in or so. It just takes about that long for everybody to really find their level and for us to adjust things, which means that there are still some times where you might get a section in a classroom where there'll be 30 kids in the room. I'm making this number up. I don't know where they're at now. There might be 30 kids in the room and 28 chairs. And that's just because things are still settling down. And they generally will settle down all the way by about the third weekend. Having said that, then I referenced this at our July meeting, and I had given a report to the Board of Education in writing regarding CUSAC, which is the State Department of Education's Quality Single Accountability Continuum. Those of you who have followed education over the last number of years, this is the review that the state does. They come in and look over the school district. When you have a high school, they come to you actually and physically inspect twice. They come once to do a physical inspection of the facilities. Tom did that, when was it? October of 2011. And then they come back, for us, it was later in the year, came back in May to do an inspection of the programs of the district. And I'm pleased to report that we have received back a letter from the County Office of Education and ultimately from the State Department of Education affirming Riverdale's position as a high-performing school district, which means that we just have to go through some interim reporting between now and the next time CUSAC will come for us, which under the current scheme is 3 years from now. This being one, next year, 2 years out, they'll come back in and do another inspection. So I'm very pleased to say that the district maintained its high-performing designation, and that means that we scored sufficiently in 4 areas of review that the State Department did. I'm sorry, 5 areas: instruction and program, fiscal management, governance, operations, and personnel. So congratulations to Tom's staff for the efforts that they put forward. Congratulations to the administration and the rest of the district staff, including the teachers, for putting forward a wonderful opportunity for us to show off the district that we have. So I believe I sent that report to you already. For the board, I have it available if people are interested in it, but I'm glad that that process went forward. And then finally, what I want to do is take a moment to address what some people have written to us about or written to me about, and I understand, although I don't follow all of the comments, that there have been some comments on the patch regarding the New Jersey Monthly Magazine article that came out recently, where Riverdale moved from a ranking of 27 to a ranking of 104. And I, like everyone else, is concerned about it, but it took a fair amount of time and a fair amount of our ability to look at some of the data that was associated with that. And I come to the conclusion, not because it's easy and it's like everyone wants to hear, but I come to the conclusion that there is something that we don't understand about the new methodology that they're using to create this ranking. Because I didn't see any school of our caliber, even some of our sister schools, fall if you will, in the rankings as much as we did, although I did see my colleagues who I met with this morning from Ridgewood and from Pascack Valley and from some of the other neighboring districts, they also took a tumble, if you will, in the rankings, although none of them was as significant as ours. And as a result of that, we've done some pretty significant analysis of those numbers. And I have to tell you squarely that we are unable to replicate the rankings that the magazine is putting forward. Taking the data that they presented to us and using the formula that they published in their magazine, again, we are unable to replicate their number, which, as anyone knows, you should be able to at least come close. I think we should at least be able to come close to what they did. And I just want to give a couple of examples of that and let you know that what I've done as a result of that is, and maybe it's true. I mean, I'm going to be the first person to accept that maybe it's true, but because we're unable to get an example of it and we're unable to replicate the data, I have written to New Jersey Monthly Magazine and asking them for a full explanation of their methodology as it pertains to Riverdale. I don't want to throw any other school district under the bus, but I do want to know how they made their decision when it comes to Riverdale. Because, again, if you just look at a couple of issues, they present in their magazine a data chart. And the data chart, I'm going to refer to the data chart from the 2010 ranking and the data chart from the 2012 ranking. Now, if you look, we know as school districts that they're really using the report card from 2009 for 2010 and 2011 for 2012. But for the sake of the discussion, if you look at the data they present for 2010 and the data they present from 2012, I have some serious concerns. Number one, if you look at test performance, the percentage of students that scored advanced proficient language arts and mathematics in 2012 is lower than it is in 2010 is lower than it is in 2012. In other words, we had more students scoring advanced proficient in 2012 than in 2010. Another example, we are offering more advanced placement tests in 2012 than we did in 2010. And the number of students that scored above 3 or better as a percentage increased from 2010 to 2012. Further analysis, if you go back and look at it and look at their data chart, in 2012 data, there were 5 schools who were ranked above us, where we outscored them in 7 of the categories that were presented. There were 13 schools ranked above us, where we outscored them in 6 of the categories. And there were 14 schools who were ranked above us, where we outscored them in 5 of the categories. So if you take that into consideration, that's 27, 32 schools where just the data alone that was presented in the pages of the magazine, we seem to outscore or score better than. So with that data presented, as well as the fact that we're unable to replicate their methodology, until New Jersey Monthly can explain to me the difference, I just can't draw the same conclusion that all of a sudden Riverdale is no longer a good school district because of these rankings from 2010 to 2012. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Will there be some movement? I'm sure there is, but I am unable to explain how it went from where it did to 104 in 2012. And unfortunately, that's not a good answer. I don't have a good answer for it, but I've written to New Jersey Monthly, I've emailed them, I've tried to call them, but obviously I'm not going to get through to them on that matter, and I just hope that I can continue to pursue this to try to get some explanation as to what this issue is. And until that point, I don't know what else to suggest about it. And with that, concludes my report. Yeah,
Just one
of course,
question or
sure.
clarification. I know we've discussed a little of this before.
Yep.
And when you made the comparisons, you just went through of all the schools that we did better than they did over the last two periods, 210, 212, okay? Did you take into account, with respect to those schools, whether or not they had a one-to-one laptop or slash technology?
You know
Because
the
that's one of the factors that are mentioned, one of the 4 factors.
You know the answer to that question. The answer is no. Other than Pascack Valley, I don't know other districts that have the one-to-one in the area. I know the private schools that do, but other than Pascack Valley, which also saw a drop in the numbers. And technology is part of their methodology that goes into their school environment section. However, once again, when I look at the data that they presented and compare it to, the data that they showed, I don't know how to explain it. I just don't know how to explain it.
Patrick, can you tell the public that they only looked at the 2011 scores as a snapshot and obviously published it in 2012? Just, and again, I don't know whether you know the SAT scores or the other testings that came out, that grade was like 40 points lower on the average.
Correct.
How much higher was the 2012, which will never be published in New Jersey Magazine, because they take every other year. So rather than averaging the 2 years that they don't see and coming up with the average of the two where you would get a better baseline for statistics, they're just using 1 year, skip a year, do the next year. And as you know, one class, 1 year may be a great class and 1 year may not be a great class. Do you know how much better 2012 actually did than 2011?
I do.
Wait a minute, I just asked him that question.
This is on like the SATs and stuff?
Yes,
He did?
SATs, yes.
Oh, just SAT. you're
Yeah,
talking,
I'm
not
just
has
talking
not-
SAT.
43
It
points
was,
higher.
the way, what New Jersey Monthly does, and I recognize that they just have to pick a data point, data set. They have to do something in order to come to it. But what they do is,
Easy to average.
even though they say 2010, they use the most recent report card. And the report card for that was published in 2010 was based upon the class of 2009, okay? So we publish a report card, I'm making this up, but let's say January 1st, and then New Jersey Monthly collects all of their data, and then they publish their article pretty much every 2 years in August. So the 2009 students that I am referring to as 2010 data, because it was in that article, they were 1633 on the SATs. 1643. This is the 2009
33.
students. The 2012 data, which I recognize is the 2011
Right.
class, was 1591. That's what's reported in their magazine. But the SATs for the most recent class that we just got is 1643. So we are somewhat at the mercy of what that report goes, and I think more to the point, to even out those fluctuations, there should be some way of dealing with that. As is with the graduation rate. Theoretically, the graduation rate is now based on 4 years of data averaged. And that's a significant change in the way that it used to be. They didn't collect the data that way. They collected the data before based upon the number of students that you sent to 4-year, 2-year, et cetera, schools. So there are some changes in the methodology, which I'm sure will impact us. I'm not saying that. However, I am saying that we're unable to recognize or replicate that significant of a drop.
And again, my point is that they should be averaging for every 4 years, so you can see an actual growth or decline, rather than a snapshot, which will, just depending upon the group of students that year, could either show you significant growth or significant decline. So rather than doing a 4-year average each year on everything, which is statistically what they should do so that we get a better, broader picture, they're not doing that. So that's one factor that obviously that one snapshot of that one class just happened to be significantly lower than any of the other classes that we have.
Patrick, can I just get some clarification on something?
Sure.
We're saying that for reporting for the 2010, 2011 year, our average SAT for all three tests combined was 1591.
They are,
Right.
they are, right.
Well, that's also what I think is on our school report card.
Maybe, but
And then you're saying that looking for that same set of data for this 2011, 2012 year, it went up to 1643?
correct.
Now, is that apples to apples? Because as we all know, the methodology changed for the SAT. They don't actually report it by class, they kind of report it by a testing window. And there was a change last year to incorporate some of the later test takers that come in and straggle in the spring.
When they give us the report, what they do is they stratify that.
Okay, so we're not comparing class to class, we're comparing time frame to time frames?
Yeah.
Because that's been a point of contention, I think, in some of the data that I've looked at. I've wanted to make sure we're comparing things. I'm glad to see that there is an upward trend, but I'll have to be honest, when I look at this rating and ranking kind of thing, it's to me, it's somewhat arbitrary. It's whatever New Jersey Monthly thinks is important or that they think they can quantify based on public information. It's kind of a marketing tool to sell magazines. So sometimes we're high and sometimes we're low.
That,
All
to
right.
your point, it is the most popular and highest selling edition of that.
Without a
magazine.
doubt. But for those of us who look at this data all of the time, it's the raw data, I think, that really as a board we should be looking at, and not how we rank in a magazine, and not to contribute to their profits, I guess. But for not having had a chance to look at this data that's now being reported for 2012, I did go back to the last 3 years and looked at our average SAT. And in the verbal, we dropped a lot. From 0809 to 1011, we were like 39 points above the state average to now only 24 points above the state average for the average verbal SAT. Looking the same thing at math, we were once 55 points above the state average to now only 30 points. So we were, up until this data, which I haven't had a chance to review, we were not keeping up with the Joneses, so to say. And even if you looked at our district factor group, we've never been leading our district factor group when it comes to the average SAT, but we've never been quite so far apart from the average mean either. At one point back in 0809, we were only off in math by about 4 points from the average for our district factor group. Now we're about 23 points. And what I want to say is that, where are we going with this? What do we need to do? What do we need to think about in terms of either school goals or district goals? What do we need to do to help us maintain the advantage that I think everybody's expecting here? I think that's where a lot of this concern came about with the ranking, but it's really the data behind the ranking that has to be evaluated, and if it points to areas that we need to correct, that's, I guess, what I'm looking for, an analysis. I recognize that not everything that matters can be absolutely quantified, but there are a lot of things that can be quantified. Our state test data is one, our SAT scores is another, our graduation rate. There's a lot of things that we can be looking at, and I guess I'd like some analysis as to how do we compare on all these data points versus the other schools in Bergen County that are in our district factor group. Let's go back about 5 years. Are our trends going up? Are they going down? If they're going down, what can we do about it? And I'd like to think that as this year progresses on this board, that we take a few minutes each week, each meeting, to evaluate some of that.
Again, I think you're absolutely right that we need to look at that data, but Patrick, are the ACTs looked at all in the New Jersey Magazine? Okay, no. I'm an educator at another school district, and listening to colleagues from around the county, they are pushing, and I hate to say it this way, but they are pushing the lower academic students to take the ACTs and not take the SATs. So if you eliminate the bottom group, and then you're only averaging, let's say, the top 80% of your students, and we are encouraging them to take both, which we are, then our average, we're not comparing apples to apples. So if New Jersey, you just don't know what that's out there. So there's some statistics that are straightforward, but here's one that I know that other schools in the county are taking out and suggesting only to take the ACTs because there aren't the trick questions. and it's not as hard as a test, and it's more like a test that a teacher would give in a classroom. So again, there's flaws to any test, and the New Jersey Magazine, the way they're ranking it, I just want everybody to be aware that those situations are happening out there. So again, I'm concerned, I believe, you know, the dot is, we need to look at the data to see how we can improve, but sometimes the comparison, you can't really compare, so.
Just, a comment was made about average it over 4 years. There's nothing wrong with averaging it over 4 years, but I think if you have to wait 4 years to find out that there's a big drop or a big increase, then maybe you're waiting too long, and maybe the example isn't good enough for you to act upon. Additionally, if it was over 4 years, maybe we were never the 27th in ranking. And I do remember when the ranking came out 27th, we were very happy with it and very satisfied with it. And it was pointed out that, hey, look, we're doing real well. So I think you need to take all these studies with a grain of salt. They're not perfect, they're imperfect, because you don't have an infinite amount of data to put into them. But nevertheless, it does seem to indicate something. I'm glad the administration is inquiring of the magazine to make sure that that ranking, for some reason, was a mistake with us. And if it comes back it wasn't, then it'll be an eye-opener. I'm sure the administration will tell us that indeed, on this particular scale, we have fallen, then maybe it will be something that we have to act upon.
Well, regardless of perspective of my comments, under my report, I was just indicating what the issues were that we saw, what I saw with New Jersey Monthly Magazine, and that in the absence of being able to replicate, using their data to replicate the result, I've asked for clarification from them. When I get it, I'll bring it forward.
Thank you.
And that concludes my report.
Which brings us to committee reports. Not sure if there was many meetings that happened. I know there was a few, budget and finance. No report. And actually, can I make a quick before campus facilities? Just, I would welcome the public to make an appointment with Mr. Benfiglio's office. Is at the middle school. I got the opportunity to see some of the new science labs, and I've got a middle schooler who's just kind of raving about them, saying how great they are. They're just really, they kind of scream science. They're really nice labs. Tom gave me a little tour, so thanks to the campus facilities committee for kind of helping us get that along.
Right.
In Tom's office. So.
Yeah. We were pleased to have the science labs and the new LLD room at the middle school be started and completed prior to school beginning. Both come out fabulous. So if you have an opportunity, please stop by, take you for a tour, okay? And you'll see where we spent our good money on.
Vito?
We had a meeting scheduled for tomorrow, but we may be rescheduling the meeting to September 19th at 6 o'clock. I will confirm that with some electronic correspondence tomorrow. So I'll be reporting at the next board meeting.
Well, one after, because we don't do
Yeah,
every meeting.
right.
Community relations?
We've been working on a follow-up survey, okay, through email, haven't had an official meeting. Once we get that rough draft, we'll send it out to each of you, so you get to look at it.
Was any change in the in open-ended questions? Was that brought up at all in the last meeting? And was there any change in the review?
We haven't had an official meeting. We were just looking
How
at the
about
survey
unofficial?
as it is. Again, the open, that they have the town hall meetings, they have every meeting here that they can come to. They can write at any time to Patrick, which we get a letter to.
So I guess it's no.
At this time, it's no, yes.
Personnel, right now, we're actually going to be forming some committees relatively soon because of some contract things we need to go through, but nothing to report on that. Policy and governance?
We have not met. We're scheduled together for the fall.
Okay. Technology?
Nothing to report.
curriculum tri-district.
At our July meeting, I reported that the tri-district committee had done an interview in June, and we had passed on that candidate and re-advertised for the tri-district position. And in the interim, the tri-district committee had another meeting with 2 candidates that were not in the original pool. Myself and Mr. Manzelli and Mr. Barnes were there, as well as representatives from the other 2 school districts. At the conclusion of the meeting, they were both extraordinarily fine candidates. The superintendents did some reference checking and other discussions, and as you will see on tonight's agenda, the position was offered to William Feldman as the new tri-district coordinator. As far as Riverdale Curriculum Committee, we just had a committee meeting this evening, so did not type that up. We will actually, at the next meeting, I will write something up about tonight's discussion and bring forward a recommendation for the whole board to discuss and decide on. And the main crux of our meeting this evening is the weighting of our grades. Currently, an honors class has, in your GPA, not your raw data, regular transcript grade, but in the in putting your GPA together, a honors class has a weighting of 3 additional points, and a AP class or a SUPA class has an additional 5 points. It was brought to the whole board, but it was brought to the committee that we ourselves and another school district are the lowest in the county, and certainly among all of our district factor group. And there was concern that in the college process, it was perhaps negatively affecting our kids in receiving sort of that first pass, perhaps, in how admissions officers look at who they're gonna put in this pile and that pile, or that it was perhaps giving them a disadvantage in getting financial assistance. So that's what we've been discussing, and there'll be a recommendation and then a discussion among the whole board to decide on where to go with that.
Thank you. At this point, then can I have a motion on the consent agenda items, please? Roger, do we have a second?
Second.
Paul?
If I may, just please, under items E1 appointments, the third from the bottom, it should be Jonathan Lin, L-I-N, not Kurz. Or what was it, Lurs? Yeah. Jonathan Lin, L-I-N, please.
What?
E1,
Roman numeral?
Roman numeral 7,
E1.
item E, appointments, 1, substitutes. The third person from the bottom should be Jonathan Lin, L-I-N. Thank you.
Okay. Any discussion on those? Pat?
Could we pull E, oh, sorry,
70.
Yeah, 7.
7E5, and I have 2 questions on the consent agenda. The first is on item 9.1, and it talks about the nursing services plan for the 2012-2013 year. I just had a kind of related question, because in the plan it talks about what to do if one of the nurses in the building should be absent, and how we fill the position with substitutes. In the past, and this is going back quite a ways, we used to have a problem filling these positions for the nurses. Have we had any problems lately with substitute nurses?
No, we've been very fortunate. First off, we differentiate in the pay.
Okay.
A substitute school nurse gets paid $150 a day. And secondly, we just happen to be blessed recently with some
Great.
nurses from
Okay.
both communities that want to be a sub.
Great, that's fantastic, because I know in the past, there were a lot of concerns that sometimes nurses would be out and one of the buildings would be missing a full-time staff member.
Yep.
And with all the students that we have who carry EpiPens or glucagon, what is it called, glucagon guns for diabetes and things like that, it's great that that's taken care of. Then on number 9, excuse me, that's not just 9, it's 10-9, the question I have?
Roman numeral
10,
10.
Roman numeral 10, number 9. I know we have a very defined methodology for the disposal of outdated and unusual textbooks, but as I was reading through the list that was available here, some of these books, I don't think they're all that old. Some of them might be, maybe say 5, 6, maybe not even 7 years old, especially some of the science ones. And also, there was other equipment on the list, like VCRs. I don't know if they're in working condition or not. But is there any way to amend our process here to maybe put this listing on one of our websites, maybe the high school one or the middle school one? If some of our students who are much more comfortable with paperback textbooks would like to have some of these books as they're studying throughout the year, it's not exactly the same curriculum, but I'd like to think that some of these books could be reused here in-house. I know a lot of the students will be getting new programs, a lot of it will be electronic, but sometimes we've had requests, and I'd like to think that maybe some of these textbooks could be reused, and also the audiovisual equipment. Maybe families here would like some of that equipment. Is there any way to put out a listing?
What
or-
we do is, we put an ad in the paper listing all the available materials,
Okay.
okay? And that offers the opportunity for anybody to take a look at, come to the school.
But that's that public notice thing that no one reads in the back of the paper. Is there any way maybe just throw a list on our website, so first come, first serve, or put it in the hallway and see if the kids want it or something?
Sure.
Thank you.
And you
We'll do
say
it both
outdated,
ways. We'll do it both ways,
Okay.
okay?
you say outdated, it also says unusable too, so maybe some of those are just actually just
Two-
beyond.
Some might be, but some might not be.
Out of 200,
Sorry.
yeah, because I'm seeing some of them, chemical building blocks, motion forces and energy, you know, some of the basic physics stuff that hasn't changed, basically since Newton. And it lists 238 books, 233 books, maybe 1 or 2 are usable. And what I'd like to build on what Dot said is, if this list that you gave us, and that I guess is also out here, could be put on the website, and if our constituents here in Oradell and River Edge could have first dibs just to pick one up, and if it's feasible, I don't know, if you put them in a room, let them give them a week or 2 to pick them up and take them away, and then I think it would be great.
Sure.
That could be done with this group.
Of course.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion items on the consent? Besides, item number 7E5, which was pulled? Tom, can I get a roll call then on the consent agenda items?
Sure. Roger?
Yes.
Stephanie?
Yes.
Patty?
Yes.
Claudia?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Dot?
Yes to all, but abstaining on 7A1.
Michael?
Yes.
Vito?
Yes.
And Joe?
Yes. And I'm sorry, taking my notes here. And our next item on the day is item number 7A2. It is recommended by the superintendent that the board abolish the position of Assistant Superintendent of Business Board Secretary effective immediately. I have a motion.
Make a motion?
Claudia? Stephanie? Discussion on this item?
This is the abolishment of the title that we said was gonna be a one-year position.
Last year.
Okay.
Discussion? Tom?
Roger?
Roll call?
Yes.
Stephanie?
Yes.
Patty?
Yes.
Claudia?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Dot?
Yes.
Michael?
I think I'm abstaining.
Vito?
Yes.
And Joe?
Yes. Let's see. I have a motion on item number 7A3. It is recommended by the superintendent that the board approve the job description of Assistant Superintendent Board Secretary.
So moved.
Any, Claudia? Discussion on this item? Michael?
I just wanna, I was the chair of the committee, and I had tried to get into a position where the entire board could review that description prior to it being sent up to the county superintendent. And that really wasn't done, other than for about 9 minutes. And I just want to say that I think it would behoove this board that when we have important items like the job description of the assistant superintendent or other administrator, that it review or at least consider whether it's going to vote in favor or against it, or have a consensus in favor or against it prior to the document being sent up to the county superintendent. This has happened on a couple other occasions, and I voiced my opinion against it, and it still remains my opinion.
I'd have to say I agree with Michael. I really wasn't happy with the process. I'm not sure I can agree that there was consensus before this was sent to the county office. There was input in different parts here and there, but it came out of committee and just flew over to the county, and there should have been an intermediate step. And I think there should have been some point, some intermediate step where we could have said yay or nay. Maybe it goes back to the committee, maybe whatever, but the majority would rule, but I don't think that really happened. So I have a problem with the process. I also kind of have a problem with this job description. I don't know, it's a little different than what you might see if you looked up the standard job description for an assistant superintendent on the New Jersey School Board's manual. I'm not happy with some of the parts, and I feel like I haven't had a chance to express that. I also think that making a change here between either business administrator or assistant superintendent for business to this new position, which is assistant superintendent, let's call it overall, it's not just for business, is way more than a title change. It's, if this is approved and if Mr. Bonfiglio is placed in this position, it's a big change. It's not just a title change. And I understand why it's being suggested, but I think we're looking at a lot of work here. It's not just keeping the business end of the school running, which an assistant superintendent for business is very similar to a business administrator. This is a lot more work, and I'm not sure why we would want to do this. Why is this good for the Riverdale district? I'd like some more input on that.
Just one last thing, and I guess this is directed to Patrick. If Tom's the assistant superintendent, will you be supervising him in the activities in his job description?
Yes.
Okay.
But I'm not his mentor, if that's what you're.
No, I'm just saying, because he's a novice, I'm sorry, I don't mean that, but this is the first time he would be the assistant superintendent.
Yes.
And I would like to know that there is somebody who is an angel above, making sure that there are no missteps or anything like that that are happening because somebody is new to the position.
Mm-hmm.
And so you will be taking that, you will have that role?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, just going back to the comments that were brought up by Mr. Gardner, we only have about 1,600, 1,700 students at Riverdale. And I'm kind of curious as to the timing, why to do this now, because as Mr. Gardner brought up, there's a lot of issues with the economy going on right now. I'd like to think that we would want to dedicate as much as Tom's time and efforts as possible and to keeping things as cost effective as we might be able to. There are very few districts, as he reported, that do have assistant superintendents. So my question is, why do this now and put in an assistant superintendent and essentially spread Tom that thin? Why not just wait a little bit until things kind of settle down and try this later and see if the need exists for assistant superintendent in our district?
Anybody else? discussion?
I'm not sure if it's in here or the C3. But I have just one concern, and it's, you have to differentiate between the position and the person, so you gotta try to keep them as separate as possible. But, my concern about having a BA that comes to an assistant superintendent is the making recommendations and appraisals of teachers. And again, trying to separate the person from, but Tom's been a BA for 18 years, 21 years. And so now we're gonna have him make assessment on education. I think it's, when it comes to building services and stuff like that, I mean, clearly that falls within the BA realm. So, that would be my only concern in this situation. Okay, because our number one priority is to educate, no matter what. Every day, our number one priority is to educate.
Patrick, I'm sorry to put you on the spot again, but
No
with
problem.
teachers' evaluations,
Yep.
would you have supervisory type of role, or?
Sure, I do.
Okay, and you would be the backstop to any evaluation?
Yes, and I don't see Tom's role as, if appointed to the position, I don't see him having an extensive role. I see him in actually creating the evaluation. I see him having an extensive role in learning how it's done, because I think what we all have to keep in mind that part of the discussion regarding this was that this would be a single-year appointment so that Tom could complete the requirements for a school administrator certificate. And then we would go through a motion where we would abolish this position and revert back to the business administrator. We had hoped to do that last year, but that was part of the problem.
That's the reason why I asked the question, the
Right.
abolishment of what was.
We had hoped to do that last year when we moved him to Assistant Superintendent for Business, but that title didn't qualify for the mentorship program that he needs to go through, which is what he is. So Tom was gonna go through an independent mentorship that will take place with an outside person. It's not supervised by me, but his role inside the district is supervised by me. His mentorship will be done with an approved mentor by the State Department of Education outside of here, which I'm sorry, but he has to pay for that himself. It's not part of the compensation associated with this package. He's taking that responsibility on himself, and I applaud him for doing that because he's gonna increase the number of certificates that he has. So, I don't see, the short answer is I don't see Tom having an extensive role in actually supervising Riverdale teachers that will result in a written evaluation. I see he will learn how to do that, but I don't see him part of doing that.
Well, I don't know how the mentoring program works. I would imagine that at some point he would have to do some level of evaluation and write up some type of assessment. But this is the thing. What you just said and what this job description reads as are not the same thing. Under E1, it says supervises and evaluates staff. It does not say, as in the New Jersey School Board example, assist the superintendent in supervising the district's instructional staff. There's
He
a
does
big
that now.
difference.
I still have a staff, I assume.
He supervises staff now. He writes evaluations for staff
You are
now.
not, I said instructional staff, you are not evaluating instructional staff. And so there's a big difference here between how this job description was written and how I saw the demo or the sample one on New Jersey school boards and how I see Tom's role going forward, because I expect that this mentor is gonna ask him to do some of these things. I don't know exactly how the process works, but it would seem logical that that would be the case. So I think I'm gonna go back to my original question. I see the value in it for Tom. I wanna see the value in it for the district, and I don't know what the value is in it for the district. I'm reading things like, under program development, F4, and I think it's also repeated under personnel, E4. Interprets the program's philosophy and policies of the district to the staff, the students, and the community. It does not say assist the superintendent in doing the following. Some of these things, had this been presented in executive, prior to going out, maybe we could have worked out some of these details, but that's not what this is saying.
Roger?
I absolutely get why Tom wants to do this and why the district, is offering this up. It's chicken and egg, it's no different than when the kid graduates from college and wants to get a job and, well, you need experience, well, how are you gonna get the, experience? And so, I think what I'm looking for, and again, I'm tying in the two motions that are gonna be coming up is, Tom needs to get experience assessing staff. But he can't be the sole decision maker assessing staff, and there's gotta be somebody within our staff that's going to be responsible, and what I'm trying to figure out is who is that person? And I'm not necessarily sure it's you, Patrick, because it should be somebody from the educator side.
It is me. It says personnel, under personnel, supervises and evaluates staff members as determined by the superintendent of schools. So he doesn't just get to walk into a classroom and evaluate teachers.
No,
He
my
gets
point
to
is
evaluate
that
who
you
I
are-
don't evaluate.
You're also in the same ilk of Tom, that you're also a BA that has come up. What I'm saying is I want him to get experience from somebody who's come up the different chain, up the educational chain,
Well,
to get in there. It's much different, like in the corporate world, you've got engineers that come up the chain through engineers, and you've got salespeople coming up. If you
Yep.
wanna teach somebody sales, you're not putting them with the engineer.
well, that's what the mentor's supposed to do.
I'm trying to grind that through and just
Yeah.
understand it.
That's what the mentor's
Okay.
supposed to do.
So,
Yeah.
what I'm trying to do is make sure that Tom gets the best opportunity available to him to give him, the most value.
Patty?
Okay, I understand this is a temporary, one-year position. If you don't mind refreshing my memory, after, I'm guessing July, August, September of 2013, we're gonna go back to a different job description, and
Once the certificate.
which would that be?
Patty?
Yes.
Once the certificate is complete, within that 1 year
Yep.
frame of mind, I go back to be your loving business administrator, board secretary.
With the certificate.
Hold on.
Yes.
Okay.
Now I'll have my other certificate.
Okay, so,
Which,
So-
by the way, we approved.
Yes,
I
that's
think,
on-
in April of 2011.
yes, because I'm pulling through my policy, that's why I'm asking, because I have a couple of different ones that we had kind of looked at, and school
We-
business administrator or assistant, yeah.
Right, we
okay.
approved the new job description.
Yep.
I think it was in April of 2011, not sure.
Okay.
If it's April, but.
So
it's
it'll
around
go
there.
back to that one that we had
Correct.
already worked on, okay.
I anticipate that this time next year, there will be a motion to abolish assistant superintendent position and to appoint to that, roughly this
Okay.
time next year.
All
Could be
right.
before.
I just wanted to make sure I was clear.
Another question?
Yep.
I guess. How long does it take to normally take to get a certificate? Sort of
Approximately a year.
approximately a year. So basically, we're gonna go through this, and then we're gonna have another contract where you'll also be the assistant superintendent, okay? And so basically, this is gonna be a 2-year appointment,
No.
no?
it won't be. Just for a time frame of mind, approximately this time next year, okay?
Right.
This time next year, you're gonna see a recommendation on the agenda, okay, eliminating the assistant superintendent / board secretary position. And then you'll see another resolution that'll say the reappointment of the business administrator, board secretary, me.
Okay, so the way it'll work is we're just gonna hold off redoing the business administrator contract until that 1 year is, so you get your certificate, and then it'll
Well,
work in.
yeah, we could do
Yeah.
that,
They'll-
logistically,
They'll be very close.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
overlap will be very close,
But
but
the
yeah,
idea is not to go for another second year.
no.
correct.
And I understood that concept going in.
Don?
Well, I understand the temporary nature of the one-year situation, but again, I'm still kind of questioning why we're doing this now. We really need to be looking at being as cost-effective as we can in this tight economy and putting all of our resources towards that. But in terms of this job description, if followed, allows whoever is in this position, I'm separating Tom out of this, again, I'm talking about the job description, to do things that do not say, assist the superintendent in the following. It says this person may do it, such as establish necessary procedures referring students to various local and state agencies. There are things in here that I don't think we want to give someone the absolute power of without saying in the job description something about assist the superintendent in establishing the necessary procedures, or assist the superintendent, or something like that. This job description does not say what I think we all want it to say. And
Doc, do you really think there's not a gatekeeper here at Riverdale or any other school district? Do you think that anybody can just do anything they want without running it through Patrick? Do you think that it is that haphazard where everybody just does their own thing?
Tom, I am being asked to approve a job description. The part of the Board of Education, or the Board of Education as a whole, not just me, but the Board of Education, is being asked to approve the function of this position. And it was sent through committee, or somehow got through committee, I don't know exactly what happened, but I know it never came to a point of consensus with this board. And now we're being asked to look at it here in public tonight and approve it. And I don't like what it says. And I'm thinking there might be some other people, as they read through it, who again, may not like what it says. I'd almost like to think that we could table it and then take a look at some of the suggested formats from New Jersey school boards and see if we can't align this a little bit better. I'm not comfortable, not saying that it would happen, I'm just saying that this is not acceptable. To me, yes.
I think that's important. I mean, the board did get this in July. The board did get it before July. It was on the executive session in July. It was on the executive session in July. Prior to its approval from the county office, it took 2 months from the county office to approve it. I mean, we can split hairs on whether or not there was sufficient time for everybody to review it or what order it went in. But we can't sit here today and say that there was no time to review this. This was presented in July, at the July meeting to the Board of Ed. It was on the executive agenda.
The job description was not before the board. This job description was not before the board on July 9th.
It was.
It was on the executive
It's on the
session.
executive agenda, Michael.
We was first distributed on the 13th.
The 30th.
The 30th. We had a meeting
July
on
30th.
July 30th.
And the only reason why it
We had
wasn't
a meeting
approved
July
is because
30th.
the county office
We
But it had
didn't
already
approve
we
it.
got it on July 5th, and on July 13th, you're on 13th.
Yeah.
July 23rd.
And we had a meeting on July 30th.
But by then it had
July
already been
30th, it had already been sent to the,
It had-
already been
It's already-
sent to the,
It wasn't approved by the county office until August 29th. You have that date.
But this is the point.
We received it in our office from,
There's no time to
We had
massage
it on the
this and make it acceptable to the board as a whole.
I just have
There was
to,
no
I mean, I
need
just
for
have to
input.
disagree with that there was no time to do it. There surely was time to do it.
Patrick,
Whether
there
we
was
did it or
9
not.
minutes between when this was sent out to the full board and when it went to the county offices. That's not acceptable.
There's two different issues, Dot. You had plenty of time. The county office didn't approve it until after the board had seen it, after the board had an opportunity to discuss it, after the board had an opportunity.
So
Didn't,
how would that work then? If it had already been sent to the county and the board saw major changes were needed, how would that work? It would,
then I would send it to the county and say, there was some changes on July 30th. They didn't approve it till after that.
it wasn't apparent to me on July 30th this was open for negotiations.
It says in the letter on the 17th.
In executive, we heard the same arguments. We discussed this already.
We did not discuss the clauses, no.
We don't have it on tape, but I heard the same arguments in executive as
The
you're telling
argument
now.
that it needed to be done, yes.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion on this item? Or can we take a vote?
There's a motion on the floor.
So motion on the floor, so can I have the town roll call on item number 7A3?
Roger?
Yes.
Stephanie?
Yes.
Patty?
Yes.
Claudia?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Dot?
No?
Michael?
I need to just say again that I really would hope that at some point in the future, before the machine gets started, where things get into negotiations or talking for a long period of time and then rush, we have to get it to the county executive without exploring it here, before it goes, in my mind, to the county. Because once you get the county to sign off on something, it's harder to reverse it. All right? But for some reason, I seem to be in the minority here of those board members who think it's worthwhile for them or us to review it before it goes to the county executive. On the other hand, we have Tom. I think he's on a, it's warranted to have him have the opportunity. I am assuming he's gonna have to work even harder now because he has extra stuff to do. And I'm sure Patrick is gonna keep him doing both jobs very well, and he's gonna oversee it. So with that in mind, and I really wish this didn't have to involve Tom, I will vote in favor of it.
Vito?
I share Michael's concerns, and I think this is an opportunity to remind ourselves of it, and perhaps do a little better job with the timing, and certainly, if anything, listen, if we have to force ourselves to talk about something, maybe we will have to do that when we're in executive session. But I also am fully aware and understand the genesis of this whole facilitation that we're extending to a faithful employee of the district. So I will vote yes for that.
Joe?
Yes. We have a motion, excuse me, in item number 7A4. It is recommended by the superintendent that the board approve the position of Assistant Superintendent Board Secretary for the period of July 1st, 2012 to June 30th, 2013.
I move.
Paul, do we have a second?
Second.
Oh, so Patty seconded. Discussion on this?
We're on number 4.
Tom, can I get a roll call on item number 7A4, please?
Roger?
Yes.
Stephanie?
Yeah.
Patty?
Yes.
Claudia?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Dot?
No, for the reasons I stated earlier, it's not a title change, but a position change.
Mike?
Yes.
Vito?
Yes.
And Joe?
Yes. I have a motion on item number 7E3. It is recommended by the superintendent that the board approve the appointment of Thomas L. Bonfiglio to the position of Assistant Superintendent Board Secretary for the period July 1st, 2012 to June 30th, 2013, in accordance with the terms and conditions of the contract attached to the board secretary's copy of this agenda.
So moved. Second.
Discussion on item 7E3. Tom? Michael, I'm sorry, I
That's
looked
okay.
down, I
That's
saw
all right.
Tom's name, so I apologize.
May I assume, well, I'm assuming, I'm gonna ask straight out, the copy of the contract and job description that's attached to the secretary document, or the secretary has, that's the same one we were shown?
Yeah, what's
Yes, yes.
approved on it, right.
Yes.
Okay, but it's the same one that we were handed out and that was, it's in the
Yes.
pack, okay.
No bait and switch.
You gotta ask.
I have,
You gotta.
Scott?
You know, it's a very tough economy out there for a lot of residents in these two towns, and you just have to look in the newspaper, read Patch. You know, I happened to notice as one of the two towns got reevaluated, a lot of people were concerned if they could continue to live here and support the schools as they are. And so when I was looking at this contract, I saw a number of increases in different things. Obviously, as Mr. Gardner alluded to, there's a 2% increase in salary. But I don't really understand the change in the benefit for retirement. Why did that go up for an increase in sick pay? So we're essentially looking at additional funding upon retirement when the individual who holds this contract leaves the district. What is the advantage of that to us here at Riverdale?
Well, the reason that the increase in the salary, which was 2%, which seemed to be quite in line with other ones. I'm not strictly a comparative person, but it seemed that 2% would match inflation. Insofar as the additional $600 or so in retirement compensation, but that actually is unused sick days.
Right.
All right. I mean, basically, if you counted the number of sick days, he would be paid for his sick days, I guess, at, less, $10 a sick day or something. If you count that, well, let's see, maybe a little more. But the rate is 50 up to a total maximum of 5,600. If you took his total maximum, it would be, if he was paid $50 a day for a sick leave, it would be $7,600 or $7,800. I don't have the figure with me right now. So this was this was part of a negotiation between basically the committee and Tom, trying to keep the costs and expenses down. It should be noted that it's on the lower end of the raises given. But it is a raise, and I can't go against your statement that it is a raise in this time. However, I will note that this board voted, had a surplus of $700,000 last year. At the end of the year, it had a surplus of still left of $250,000, and we didn't put it to teachers. We put it towards capital improvement. So I don't think that by withholding anything from Mr. Bonfiglio in this, the small amount, the 2% raise, it would result in any change at the board, at this district.
But,
And that's my personal feeling.
okay, but going forth to the full board here, I guess I'm opening for discussion. There's been a lot of talk in the public eye, newspapers, blogs, about keeping a very close watch on the types of benefits that kind of kick in after a person leaves. So that would be something like this here, where there's an increase in $600 in the payments for sick days, unused sick days, as the person leaves the district. So the person's no longer employed by us. He's leaving. We've just increased that. There's a lot of concern out in the public, because there's a lot of people in the private sector who do not get these types of benefits and who are fallen on very hard times. They're having troubles maintaining the increases to their taxes on the houses in these communities. So why would you give something to that extent? I don't understand the reasoning in the committee, and that's the first question, which I'd like answered.
I'd like to address that. The way it was discussed is the fact that to hire a substitute for Mr. Bonfiglio for a day that he uses would far exceed the increase in benefits that we're giving him at this point.
Have we
In
ever-
other words, this would act as, for whether your argument is you favor it or not, this would act as incentive for Mr. Bonfiglio. The argument was to stay here and save the board the expense of replacing him for that
And not
period
be
of time.
absent.
Have we ever had a problem, or have we ever employed a substitute when Mr. Bonfiglio has been sick?
I have no idea. I have to ask Mr. Superintendent.
He hasn't been using them.
Have we ever had a substitute for Tom? Or,
Tom has not had an extended absence while I've been here, just casual absences, so we've been able to work around whatever those issues are. I mean, I think the short answer to the question is, this is what the committee negotiated. This is what everybody negotiated.
Well,
The terms and conditions that are in here are what was negotiated.
One additional point, I guess just to summarize for the public, there was an increase in 2% in the salary, the increase in $600 in the payment at retirement for unused sick days. There is still the travel allowance for professional conferences and things like that of $2,000. If all these things were increased, oftentimes when you hear people talk about negotiations, there's also a give back. What changed in that regard? What are we looking at?
I'd just like to say one thing in general. It's excluding the description of the assistant superintendent, the major terms, these 2%, $600, the rest of the contract terms remaining the same from this prior contract that's just been negotiated, that was discussed, okay? And the consensus, well, maybe not everybody, was that if the agreement reflected that, that was sort of the way to go. So I just want to say, it's not the first time, you know, we're saying that, and what you're saying is basically you don't agree with the way we negotiated, but that's,
No, I'm asking,
Which you're
and
absolutely
I think
right,
I've
Joe.
even heard Paul give this statement, when you go into negotiation on these contracts, certain things are given, and yet there's some give back. What changes? You know, I guess I've had some concerns, and it was very hard to get input into this throughout, well, not throughout the process, but at the final end, about some of these things. Maybe there would have been
oh,
less of a funding for professional conferences or something. Where is some of the give and take? Because we are all required to do more with less around here. There's just not an infinite amount of tax dollars to go to. What changes could have occurred or didn't occur? I don't understand this. There's nothing that was reduced, only increases.
I beg to differ. The initial, I can't get into details, but there was a give and take, and the end result was a compromise that resulted in the terms of this. It's not exact as if we just said, all right, what do you want, and did it. They're
I
the
did not
words.
imply that. I'm sorry if it sounded like that. I'm just getting a little concerned here that I'm not really understanding why we're giving out, I think, a lot in terms of the fact that just now approved. It's not just professional development that was just approved for Tom. It was an actual change in his position. He will not only be relegated to financial operations in this district, he will be doing more and other things, and he wants to advance himself, and I think that's great that he wants to advance himself. But he still has all the responsibilities to maintain here. And yet, we're seeing contracts year after year after year continue to increase. And then I look at the fact that we had students come before us, and it's not apples and it's not apples and apples here, it's kind of a little off topic. But we had students come before us, and we had the resources, they wanted to improve themselves and take an organic chemistry class. We couldn't do that. These contracts just go up and up and up, and the taxpayers are being asked and asked and asked to pay for this. Where does it turn that it starts to benefit us as well?
Anybody else? Tom, excuse me, can I get a roll call on item number 7E3, please?
Roger? Yes. Stephanie?
Yes.
Patty?
Yes.
Claudia?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Don?
No?
Michael?
Yes.
Lino?
Yes.
I vote yes. I have a motion on item number 7E5 that was pulled from the consent agenda item. 7E5, it's recommended by the superintendent in regards to the appointment of William Feldman as a tri-district supervisor of curriculum, as further stated. Stephanie?
Second.
Roger, the second. Dot, since you pulled it, I'll leave the floor to you first.
Yeah, my comments are this, is that this was, up until now, a consent agenda item until I pulled it, and basically, we're saying we're gonna put this person in the tri-district office, and my comments don't relate as much to the person as the whole idea of tri-district. Again, it's another one of these things, well, we're gonna go ahead and give it a shot, and that's great, except for the fact that I haven't seen any evaluation as to how this has benefited Riverdale. I did read the CUSAC review, and there was some concerns that we were a little late in implementing the changes to the middle school science programs. Remember the standard, the standards changed in 2009. We have other programs that need to be reviewed. For example, the biology and the chemistry programs have not been updated since 2008. I feel like it's really hard to get some of these things to happen. If you look at the 5-year plan, we're not going to be revisiting science for 4 more years. I don't know if this is really of benefit to us. I'm a little concerned that sometimes some of the programs here, because they relate to just maybe one school, the high school, and not to all 3 districts, sometimes have been put off. And we've been looking at this for years. We constantly think that it's going to help our students when they get here in 7th and 8th grade, and it may well be, but I have no evaluation to know that. I still get parents calling, well, my son or daughter has been trained in math via this format, and they're not sure if the kids coming from the other district have been trained the same way. I don't know, because I'm not seeing any feedback on this, and I don't know if I want to wait 6, 7, 8 years to see if our scores start to improve. I want some evaluation here before we just, by consent, blind consent almost, just put another person in this spot.
You're talking about two separate issues, though. You're talking about the position of tri-district coordinator, which this does not refer to. This refers to somebody being appointed to that position. We already renewed that as a position
When?
when we did reorg.
It has not come up. I'm
Yes,
sure I
when we
would have
did
said these
reorg.
words then.
When we did reorg, it was an administrative position. We already accepted it as a position for the school year. So now you're talking, which I understand what your comment is in relation to that, but that's not what this is about.
When
You're
you're saying when we
questioning
did reorg for
In
when we
May.
didn't have an election in April
Yes,
or
we
May.
did it in May.
And this was just blindly put in as all, I don't remember seeing a separate,
It was right there.
it was put in the agenda. Can someone pull that? Just
I don't
see
have
it,
it.
a past agenda? I don't recall that. Do we agree to approve tri-district? Or maybe we did because it was before
did.
she
We did.
resigned?
We did, we have
We
to.
did.
Was it before she resigned, the previous person? Because we're at a point where somebody resigned. At that point, you would want to evaluate whether it was a positive or a negative, and all I'm getting is recommendation. And it, by all means, this person has a very strong, is a very strong candidate. I'm not questioning the candidate, I'm just questioning the position.
Oh, I know, what I'm saying is that that's not what this is about, though. And so,
This is not about the
Yeah, you
position.
sort of
It's
Right.
About the
filling.
position.
Right.
That sort of answered the question, because he said he's a strong candidate, that's exactly.
He is a strong candidate, and I told you that it was not about the person from the get-go, but I don't recall since Ms. Capodanno left, that this position has been re-approved by this board. And I guess I don't recall, maybe it just happened that it was one of the list of 10,000 things, and I missed it, but I'm a little concerned about that.
we're trying to,
We're all
we're all
looking
trying
at
to
it.
look
I
at
know.
it.
I don't think it's
We're all
electronic,
taking
I don't think they're good at that.
You're all using language that you're not exactly, that you exactly mean to. We budgeted the position, we have the position in our budget as was approved by the Board of Education to move forward. We had a resignation from the person who was in the position, and we initiated a process to appoint someone to the position. That's what took place. I don't think, you could look till you're blue in the face as to whether or not there was a discussion about reauthorizing the position or reauthorizing the office. I don't believe that there was no motion to the Board of Ed for that. We budgeted for the position, we had a resignation, and we started a process to refill it. I think everyone understood that was going on. So I can't, I think everybody's gonna look till they're blue in the face to find anything other than that.
Pat?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Don't we have some type of agreement with Oradell and River Edge about this person?
Yeah.
And when did we last vote on that
It's been a
agreement?
while.
I mean, that's what I
We
was
discussed
talking about
that when we did
position.
the
Yeah, I don't know, honestly.
I don't
I
remember
don't.
doing this since, like, we used to do it annually when we did have the elections, but I don't think we've done it. The 14th of May?
14, I don't know if I have it. Take a look.
Go to recent posts,
I
Michael.
don't.
Doesn't matter.
Michael, I don't know the
Right.
answer
We
to your
discussed
question.
this as a budget item before.
Correct.
And we talked about the other districts, whether where they were paying and whether we were getting the most of it, and we approved it. Now we picked a person to
approved
fill
the
the
budget.
position.
I agree
So
with
let's vote
Was-
for
was there was
yay or
an
nay
agreement
to
that this
whether
board
this
wasn't
person is gonna fill it or not.
$40 for
Regular
the
session.
Actual hours, but the agreement was, is that that was an
Voting.
investment in the people coming
Yes.
up
What is
to
that?
this district,
right.
and I
Oh,
mean, that was
summer.
the discussion,
Appointment.
And we approved it.
yes.
So why are we going backwards?
I agree, we approved the budget, but there was a change.
No, but there was a
There's no
discussion of the
change.
position, specifically about the position.
In May,
And there,
Do you have an
the
item number?
overall consent, overall discussion is that this district, meaning our district, was not getting the hours
Right,
for the dollar,
where was that discussion held, Roger?
right here.
right here.
And, but the consensus is that there was an investment in the students coming up, because Tony had spent a lot of time in the elementary schools.
I've only missed one meeting, so maybe it's the June 18th one, but I don't remember this discussion at
It
all.
was before that.
It had to have been
It
before
was
that.
during the budget.
Well, the budget was before May, wasn't it?
All right, well anyways, my concern is where are we going with all this? I can put this now under new business if you want, we'll keep this to just the position, but, to the person being appointed. But I would have thought that if we're going to have a situation where somebody resigns, at that point, it's a great time to evaluate whether this is really useful and whether it's really of benefit to Riverdale. And the fact that I'm seeing curriculums still needing to be updated, that I've asked about being updated for some time, and then I'm seeing end of course scores for biology. I don't have the ones from 2012, but I do have the ones from 2010 and 2011, and we did very poorly. In terms of advanced proficient, we were one of the lowest in our district factor group for Bergen County. I'd like to see some of this work get done, and I don't know if it will, because the 5-year plan does not list any work in science for the next 4 years.
I just asked one point, Alton, I'm not trying to be a wise guy about it, but I was heard earlier today that the sciences haven't changed much since Newton. We do need to look at, you know what, I've been quiet all night, I get a moment as well. The curriculum needs to be looked at. This is why we're having somebody appointed to this position. And I think what Roger brought up before is, you know what, and I've heard Vito, I've been on this board not nearly as long, but always saying, what's in it for us? What's in it for us? Well, I think what we're gonna see, what's in it for us is the actual students from the elementary districts who are now into the middle school now, who've had the benefit of the 3 districts actually coming together for a change and trying to do something together, that's where we're actually gonna start to see it. And yes, they have to look at the curriculum. But, again, this is something we're appointing a position that was approved before. Just my 2 cents. I think we are gonna see the benefits. Michael?
Just to correct, my statement was motion of particles has not changed since Newton. I am not going to disregard 4 centuries of scientific progress and be attributed to that.
Okay. Okay.
Well, maybe
vote?
we could get some updates starting to come along. Where are we seeing the progress with having this tri-district? Because I'm seeing an area that's being omitted that hasn't happened, and it's not the first time I've brought this up. I don't think this is right.
Stephanie?
I know what you're saying about the 5-year plan, and I know you've sat on curriculum before, and, you know, you weren't this year, but I'm sure Roger or Paul could attest to, or Joe, because he's been there, could attest to the fact that we've said, just because it's not in the rotation, meaning you have to, it doesn't mean we ignore it for the 5 years. I mean, they're constantly looking at the curriculum and what needs to happen and to be done, and I think everybody who sits at this table wants to say when it's our turn to see the results. You know, I think even the people at the other boards, you know, change is hard and sometimes subtle, and also, you know, we also don't have the same group of kids that come every year, even though the kids are moving along. It's not like we have the same group every year of 8th graders, and so it's kind of hard to, you know, check those nuances. Well, the 8th grade science did well this year, well, it didn't do last year. Is it the curriculum? Was it the way the kids received the material? Was it, you know, so I think everything, you know, has to be looked at, but I don't think anybody is ignoring it for the 5 years. I don't think that happens with any curriculum. Just because it's not in the, you know, the hopper that has to be done doesn't mean it's just being ignored. And we've had the tri-district coordinator tell us that over and over again. So,
The most recent tangible result we have in the office is the change in our order of our science curriculum that's going into effect now. That came out of the tri-district office. We approved that last spring, it's going into effect now. It's the first year of the program. That's a tangible issue. And as far as this specific person taking the position, he needs an opportunity to assess the lay of the land and find out where there might be a need to address a curriculum that's not in the order that we have on the 5-year plan. He needs an opportunity to look at it. But, I mean, Riverdale is benefiting from this. Riverdale is benefiting from the position because we're getting kids more closely aligned as they come from the 6th grade into the middle school. And again, as you've heard me say this before, I'm gonna say it again. It's not that when they come to the middle school that we view them as River Edge kids or Oradell kids. We view them as Cherry Hill kids, Roosevelt kids, OPS kids. It's just like 3 different elementary schools coming into the building. To give you an analogy, when I was in a previous district as a superintendent, I had 4 elementary schools. We didn't look at them as being 4 different quadrants of that town. We looked at them as Bird School kids, Hamilton School kids, Central School kids,
And the fourth one.
and the other one, which I'm forgetting, but those 4, we wanted to make sure that they had the same skill set when they entered the middle school. That's what's happening now, because this is the 6th year of the program, so the current 6th graders would be the kids who would be benefiting from the full implementation of the office. They'd be coming to us next year in September. But we are benefiting from the program. I mean, but I will never sit here and tell you that it's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 based upon hours or whatever. I'll never say that because that's, not gonna work.
You know, maybe we could get some insight by having assuming the new person is appointed tonight, having a new person after they reviewed everything and had some time, like a day or two, figure out what's going on. But in any event, realistically, prior to the next budget approval, and hopefully months before then, come to the board and say, hey, look, I've looked at the whole thing. Here are my plans for how I can improve all 3 district schools. And let us know what his ideas are, and maybe we could have some interplay. Would that be something that would be all right? That we could come to the board, maybe put it on an agenda so people could come and hear?
He would relish that.
So that's a yes.
Yes. Yes, it is. And I think this individual would relish that opportunity.
I do think so. Roll call then, Tom, on item number 7E5, please.
Roger,
Yes.
Stephanie,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
Claudia,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
My comments again are not on the person, I just have to abstain. I'm looking at data that's showing things are moving very slowly at the Riverdale District in some of our courses, and we need to figure out how to work this up, so I support Michael in getting Mr. Feldman here as soon as possible.
Michael,
Keeping in mind that our lengthy discussion was not on the merits of the appointee, who we apparently are voting in favor of, and I'm going to vote in favor of, but merely on the question of whether his position is something that has borne fruit based on our investment. I'm going to vote yes.
Vito,
Yes.
and Joe.
Well, I was just gonna make a comment, you know what, coming to the tri-district meetings and all too, and see, having the various people come in and all too, I can tell you that, this candidate was, there was a lot of good candidates, there really were, and there was the superintendents went back and looked, and all came to a consensus to make this recommendation, so, I think they made a wise choice, and I'm voting yes. Can I have a motion on item number 9-2 as stated, because it's too long for me to read.
I'm sorry,
9, Roman numeral 9-2.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Patrick, maybe you give us a quick little, because there's a lot of whereases and legal, you might be able to give us a brief?
Yes, the Maywood Board of Education is requesting that the New Jersey School Board's Delegate Assembly take on, as a part of its platform, a position against third-party administrators administering coursework for teachers that are then being accepted by colleges for graduate credit. And we, as you are aware, we went through a recent grievance process with our own association, and we are asking, I am asking you here to support Maywood's position to have New Jersey school boards put this as a part of their delegate assembly.
Thank you. Michael?
Just curious, how come it doesn't say any of it would be nice if it would say something along those lines. It was one of the whereas clause, you know.
Whereas what?
It would have been nice what you just explained, which made it understandable, that this is dealing with online courses by third-party providers, and we want to have some control over it. And I'm just saying that maybe in the future, instead of, I guess we're adopting the,
You're just supporting Maywood's position in this matter,
No, no.
which I gave you all copies of.
but is this some form that was given to us by some
No.
associate? Okay. Then in the future, if we could, a little more meat, that's all. I'm not against it, I'm just saying.
I know you're not, I got it.
What does it mean in the proposal from Maywood? It says that in many cases, the coursework, content, and grading system are developed by the third-party administrator and not the accredited university. How is that happening?
That means that the
You're
third-party
even that.
administrator
Yeah.
has, if you go to their own particular website, they have a course that they've created. They're not, that institution is not accredited, but they have a contractual relationship with certain colleges and universities that are accredited, where they're granting the credits. So you actually take the course from the third-party administrator, but get credit from a college or university.
So does the accredited university have a similar course with the same title that they use that's distinctly different
Not in
than
all
this one?
cases.
Not,
Not in all cases.
but it could be. Is the credit hours the same between the two?
Not in all cases.
Okay, because I'm not sure, I totally, I see where we're coming from, and I see how the abuses have occurred, but I can't understand, I guess, if this is an issue that happens all the time, or if it's just somehow being, the third-party administrators are now marketing a new product using an old name and somehow.
More and more common, that is what is
They're
happening.
trying to make money.
They're trying to make money.
Right.
Okay, all right.
Tom, roll call on item number 9-2, please.
Roger?
Yes.
Stephanie?
Yes.
Patty?
Yes.
Claudia?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Leo?
I'll make sure that I carry forth the wishes of the board when I attend the delegate assembly, so,
Okay, great.
yes.
Joe?
I was actually going to bring up a new business, who would like to actually attend the delegate assembly, but now I have a volunteer.
No, I'm on it since.
I know, but I'm gonna well, as long as you're there, that maybe somebody else would like to join you.
Hey,
But I'm gonna vote yes.
the more the merrier.
It's actually a good experience for people. I know,
I didn't volunteer.
I've actually seen a couple of them I've been to. One of our board members used to be there. I think it'll probably still be there. Brings us to item number 12, old business, but can we, old and new, can we 12 and 13 together, basically? Michael?
Old and new. In the past I've talked about tutors. And I've just gone through, and I'll relate it with my wife, finding tutors and the mad scramble that everybody, not everybody, because I can't speak for everybody, but there seem to be a lot of people going after a small group of tutors. And it seems to be that more often than not, a person will hire a tutor for their child who is attending one of the Riverdale schools. Right now I have kids both in high school, so I'm just gonna talk about the high school. And I'm saying, wow, and I've said it before, why do so many parents feel it necessary to hire tutors? And is there something that this school district could do to help the residents of both towns? And I also noticed recently, and also before, that we have a whole bunch of athletic coaches. And I said to myself, how many academic coaches do we have? None. Okay. And I also, in the last 6 months, this board has had and seen and used a surplus of $700,000, $450 the first time that went into budget for programs for this year, and another $250,000 that this board put aside for capital improvement. And I said to myself, well, if we have all this funds, all right, why can't we provide a service to the students in addition to teachers scrambling through lunch, coming in early, or staying late? And therefore, I'm going to propose, and I'm just going to move, that we hire 2 or 3 teachers to occupy Riverdale from the hours of 2:30 to 7:30, like a full day, because I know there's a lot of athletic activities that occur after school. So to try and fit in some tutoring, you have to juggle your time. My wife showed me the calendar between, field hockey and soccer, how we can fit people in. So my motion is that we hire somebody in the language arts, English in the old days we called them English teachers, and maybe a math teacher. And if we had a third position, but I'm just going to ask for 2 right now, is science. Somebody to be hired outside of the normal 9 to 5 or 8, whatever the thing is, who will be available at the Riverdale High School to service Riverdale Middle School and Riverdale High School students who want extra help in a subject. And as part of that, the rationale, that was the motion, part of that is I don't want to overstretch the teachers as they are right now. And I think that for the cost that would be involved as a pilot program for 1 semester even, see if we have any results. Take a survey after. Find out if it was useful. But we have the ability, we have the facilities, we seem to have the money, okay? Why don't we try something that may help the students? We would have the teachers here who would have been, Gateway would be the superintendent, as he is with all teachers, to make sure we got qualified teachers in here to go and assist the students. And they would not be rushed because that would be what their job was. And so I'm asking if anybody will second it.
Second it.
Could I ask though, if we could to narrow it though, for the
The 2,
2 new teachers?
but you know what, before I say that, would it make a difference for anybody if it was 2 or 3? Okay, then I'm gonna go for 3, math, English, and science. If it's not gonna make a difference, I'm gonna go for the whole enchilada, because I think all 3 areas could use tutors. And the motion is the hiring of 3 teachers from 2:30 to 7:30, or whatever, if it's 2 to 8, whatever make it 2:30 to 7:30, because I know you want something definite.
Modified it.
We could always, okay, for 1 semester, that's this semester if possible. Okay, and to be available to all students from the Riverdale School District, and that includes the middle school students. They might have to come over here to be tutored or whatever, but that's the motion.
Second.
So I have a question, Patrick. We started 2 years ago, I believe, in the middle school, a program where we were offering math tutoring after school. Was it 2 years ago?
Yeah.
May have even been 3 years ago.
It's 2.
2 years ago? How many students did we have that participated in that? And do we have any feedback from Rich with regards to success or not?
Well, since this is a surprise to me, I really can't answer the question that you have, but hopefully this is not a surprise to you. You know this is what we're doing in the middle school, right, with the reinstitution of the PLUS program. Two of the individuals that we hired to work from, I'm making this up, if the regular school day is 7:30 to 3:30 to 2:30, we hired these people to work from 8:30 to 3:30 to be there for students for additional help for the language arts and the math program. This is the first year of the program, hopefully that we're gonna have some success with it and see if whether or not we can advance that to the upper grades, but it just went into effect for 3 days ago, this program.
Michael?
But we created the positions and hired them. That was part of the additional budgetary positions that were in the budget.
The point just want to make a point, is that the time frame I am asking for does not overlap their normal, and I know there's an hour extra, does not at all overlap their school time, and to the extent that it overlaps their athletic time commitments, hopefully there'd be some time in that period that they could go.
Extracurricular, because there's marching band, there's
Yeah.
a lot of other things.
There's a lot of stuff going on, that's why I wanted
When
such
you
a
say
big
athletic, I'd
span.
like to say extracurricular activities, because there is a lot of other stuff
Oh,
that
I'm
goes
sorry,
on
besides
after
that.
school,
Okay,
because you know
sure.
what? We do have, the science club, the robotic club, things like that go on after
I
school.
did
so
not,
I just,
We have,
I think-
I think a
let's
couple things we
clarify.
need to, one, in the community survey, there's each subject and how many times they may go to a tutor. So we're gonna have some information that we can give you. So
Gotcha.
I'd like to table this to certain, I'd also like to give Patrick the opportunity to see the net worth of those teachers.
Yeah, I'd like to.
For that extra hour.
2 years ago with
Well, again,
the math program.
I don't wanna rush into something, is what I'm trying to say. You know, so there is some information coming, there's some past knowledge that, I don't have in front of me. So again, I'd like to.
I'd like to,
table
what
that
questions
thought.
are you asking about tutors in particular? Just want to be aware of.
For each subject, okay, we're going to ask the frequency of you having a tutor, whether it be every day after school, twice a week,
You can afford
once a
every day.
month. Hey, look, you have to start with it, so we're going to have that checklist.
And I want
done.
to address something. You said rush into it. I've been talking about this for 2 years now, okay? And I have not seen it get better. What I have seen, and I can only talk about myself, and I can only talk about the interaction that my wife and I have with others, and who can recommend a tutor, and what subjects do you need tutoring in, and who to do, and in getting the tutors. There are a lot of people hiring tutors, and a tutor, that's $40, that's $50 an hour, that's $70 an hour.
That's cheap.
There are, calculus could be higher
That's
than
cheap.
that. That's cheap. So if you think that a person, asking them, do you hire a tutor 5 days a week?
Yeah, but that's
You
one of
gotta
the
be
things. You
rich.
go daily, weekly, bi-monthly, you gotta start with some criteria on the
And
survey.
what I'm saying is, I think it's time enough for the surveys to have been done. Let's try an experiment. Let's see if this board wants to support an experiment in helping students by offering them teachers for tutoring after school, and not during lunch, and not during breakfast.
What I just said? I just said that you're doing that next year.
But they have
Only for the middle school.
athletic stuff, and they have other programs right after school.
Stephanie?
So my two questions would be, what's the salary and what are the qualifications? Because if anybody can come, not anybody can tutor everybody in any subject. So who are these people? Like, what's the?
This motion is merely on hiring 2 teachers. If we get past this,
Great.
we can discuss salary. I put out 2 areas, the 2 teachers, one was math and one was English.
You said 3 for
Great.
science.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have 3 now, right, you're right, thank you. Math, English, and sciences, okay? And by the way, we have very talented teachers, I have been told over and over again, that we have people who are qualified in biology, who can also teach physics, who can also teach other subjects. So if we get a good person, that one individual may be able to cover a number of sciences, a number of the math programs and classes, and a number of the English. And you can't do 100%, I don't think, but at least we can make an attempt, and that's what the motion is addressed to.
Do you have a question, Patty?
I know in coming into the school, I know last year you'd see signs for National Science Honor Society offering tutoring help. I'd be curious, for those kids, how many kids come after school to get tutored by our, I can't
There's a
say it
big
again.
difference there
Peers.
between a
Is it?
student,
Okay.
a peer versus.
Peer students.
And I think math offers it too.
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Math goes down to the middle school.
Oh, they do, okay. All right.
However, that we still have the concern that there are a number of people using tutors.
Because one of the questions might be, which is why. But, you know what, you had your question,
Go ahead.
it's okay,
Fine.
thanks, Scott.
Thank you. But usually tutors are on a one-to-one basis. So if we, and it's a very noble idea that you have, and I'm just trying to rationalize it and find a way that, number one, I can support it, and I would support it, and number two, that it can be implemented. And to do that, I think we need to give the administration time to come up with a doable proposal. But my first reaction is when we hire tutors, it's 1 hour, one-to-one, very intensive and direct to the subject matter. If we have 3 or 4 students that sign up, and it becomes almost a classroom, a classroom type of thing, and then we have to hope that the student that sign up all are of the same year and do the same class. So that's my
I just want to address
concern.
your concern. If it turns out only one student shows up for each teacher, then we've met your concern. But it's expensive. If we want to do one tutor, one teacher for each student, that's too expensive. We can't afford it, we can't even start. When we talk about teachers right now offering extra time for students, it is not always on a one-to-one basis with the teacher. There are many times several students, sometimes a lot of students, going for the extra time with the teacher. What I am simply saying, let's give it a try. One semester, see if it has any impact, and then you can go ahead and modify it. We have not tried yet, ever, to offer something like this.
So my response would be, for something that has such far-reaching consequences, it is a proposal that needs to be studied and needs to have the input of the administration. We're not educators. We are making good recommendations, we're raising good issues, but for something like this, I think we presented the need. I think now we have to give the administration the opportunity to tell us how they would fulfill that need.
Exactly, but that's what we're saying.
No,
As
we're
a
not.
Board of
We're-
Ed, as a Board of Ed, we're asking the superintendent of the school district,
Yeah.
we would like to have a program after school, long enough duration, with teachers hired for those positions
Okay.
and allow students to come in. And then Patrick would have to go out, find the teachers,
Well,
find the
You
rooms.
have just
find who would
clarified
be
your
qualified for
position.
all these things.
And I
yeah.
appreciate that, because I thought you were proposing to hire one of each, and I just don't think.
Wait a minute.
No, 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 he's saying,
This
No, he
motion is
just-
to hire
Three people.
okay,
This
then
motion
I-
is to hire
Oh, okay,
three
One
okay,
for
people.
math,
then,
one for
okay,
English.
then
serve
I
as
would not, I
tutors.
would not be in favor of
This
that
motion
at
is
all.
to hire
for the
three
reasons
people to serve
stated.
as tutors.
I would not be in favor of that at all. I think it would be impractical.
Roger?
Michael, would you be opposed to amending your motion to the board has expressed interest in this program that you're talking about, and that the CSA is to make a presentation on September 24th that we can make a decision on. Meaning that I would like Patrick to go back to his committee and staff to say, this is what we'd like to do, the board would like to do this, and how can we execute this? But I think we're saying, we want this, now give us a suggestion. And we give them 2 weeks to come back to us for the 24th. Because I think what you're doing is, you're making a decision. I'd like to hear, input from the other end, but you know what? If we want to do it then we'll make the decision, the board. But I'd at least like him to have input and a suggestion and a recommendation. And I think 2 weeks is a legitimate time to have that, because then he could get feedback from Richard about how that program ran or didn't run in the middle school. We might have a little feedback on the Plus program, and it's still early in the school year, that if we want to run a trial, kids aren't 100% into their, academics yet. But by October 15th, if on the 24th, and we want to execute something, then I think we're into it.
But let me ask, we have the superintendent here, Patrick's here. And I get the feeling, and maybe I'm wrong, that Patrick, you would not be in favor of it? Or am I just putting words in your mouth and we should wait 2 weeks?
I think that, Mike, this is an example. I'll chose strict one, and I appreciate that. But this is an example of what we're starting to do as a board, is we're just making decisions willy-nilly on the fly under items for board discussion and decision, old business, new business. This is not the first time. As I sit here and watch this, what's happening is that the organized meeting that we go through we move through fine, and then we spend an hour and a half, 2 hours in this vague section at the bottom of the thing saying, I think we should do this, I think we should do that. Now, not suggesting this particular thing, I think we should do this, I think we should do that. And we end up spending time where we're running around like chasing something. This is, you're proposing in this issue, albeit a good idea, is essentially to create private tutors, or an opportunity for private tutoring for members of the public. I think people make a decision for a tutor based upon very different and specific reasons. If we're looking to set up some opportunities for extra help, that's one thing. But if we're looking to reteach or recreate an opportunity to teach what's going on in the classroom, I don't think that's really all the issue that's here. I think people engage tutor. I engaged the tutor for my son when he was going through some issues because he didn't do the work properly. It wasn't because the teacher was performing poorly, or it wasn't because, but he needed extra help making sure that he was doing his work. And that's what that came about it. I think people make decisions for tutors based upon some very specific issues and very personal issues that have to be inside the family. I cannot accept that people hire a tutor simply because they're not getting the math, I'm using math as an example, in the classroom.
But we don't have any support for that, as well as my position, we don't, I agree, all right? And let me just ask Vito something. If I went down to one teacher in the math and sciences, would that change your vote?
I still want to hear from him.
Okay. I think we've
It's
heard from
too
Patrick.
far-reaching.
My suggestion might get you a step closer.
Yeah.
If I could, Claudia, you've been waiting patiently.
Thank you. In agreeing with Patrick about the willy-nilly, we set up a set of norms that we were supposed to follow, and a lot of times when it comes to old business, new business, we break all of them. So that's something that maybe we need to be consciously reminded of. Maybe Patrick, maybe it could even be put on the agenda so everybody could read it, because we do not follow it. That's the first thing. Second, we have negotiations coming up with the teachers. This might be a great opportunity to possibly increase their time that they stay after school. This might be something that a committee could discuss when the committee is chosen to go into negotiations. This might be something that we could use. Apparently, Mike has a lot of knowledge about this, and so does Dot about the tutors. It might be something to consider. But we do have to continue to look at those norms because we do not follow them.
Can I just get a point of clarification? Earlier, on the staff members that stay between 8:30 and 3:30 for that extra little bit of time after school, is that only middle school students and only middle school students that are in the PLUS program, or what exactly is that?
It's the first year that we're doing it. We're doing it in the middle school. Those teachers are also teaching language arts and math plus, but they're available to tutor. I don't want to use tutor. They're available to provide extra support for any child. We will be recommending that some children do it and speaking directly with their parents, but they'll be available for any child.
Any child in the middle school?
Mhm.
Okay, and has that been made clear to the parents?
It just started.
Okay, all right,
what is-
well, I didn't know if the
what-
news,
right.
just asking if the newsletters, okay, but let's go back. Now, I think I sent some of Michael's frustrations because this whole tutoring thing, we've been batting it around for quite some time now. We started last year when a number of us asked if at least something could go on the survey, so at least we'd have that data now. The surveys about tutoring haven't gone out yet, so we don't have enough true information, but we do have a lot of anecdotal information, and we know that there's a lot of students who really are searching for that support. It's kind of weird, but I'm telling you, I've heard of tutors that work with a lot of our students. They could tutor from 3 in the afternoon to 11 o'clock at night, 5 days a week, maybe 7 days a week. I've even heard of such drastic situations of parents feeling like, you know what, I need to use that lunch hour or whatever period of time during the day to get to a tutor. And I don't know why they feel that way. I don't know what's happening in the classrooms. I don't know if they feel something is, they're not keeping pace. I don't know what is going on, but we really do need to get to the gist of this, and we do need to do it very quickly because I think Michael is pointing out, we can't wait to keep thinking about it like we did last year. We have to really put something in place so we have the supports. I, for one, even brought up the need for supports with the Physics First program because that's a brand-new program, because we're introducing it at an entirely different level than we've introduced physics in the first. I had asked for supports. I don't know if those have been established, but I think a lot of us have been asking. We've been asking to get information from the public. We want to know what's going on, and then we need to address it. In whatever way, shape, or form, we have to get our students to the point where we're giving them all the supports they need to succeed in the classroom. And
The teachers are giving it extra help all the time. Are the students using it?
Excuse
I
me?
don't know.
Are the students using the extra help?
You bet. There are some classes,
you have
my
stats on that?
son, my
Okay.
son has gone to, that had like 15 to 20 kids and an extra hour after school.
Once or monthly?
You know?
You asked me the same questions
Okay,
about the survey.
Yeah, monthly, as often as the teacher will allow it. As often as the teacher will allow it.
Don't
As
they have to
often they're
stay every day
available,
for
they
extra-
come and they help.
Every day the
If you want
teachers-
if you want my,
But by contract, they
Input.
have to stay every day for extra help, right? Or a few days a week? Every day after school for extra help. So you're saying that there's 15 or 20
No,
people
no, but they
every day in every
no,
teacher's
I am
room?
not saying that. I can only talk to my son.
Okay.
Okay, okay, and the classes that he's in.
4 days a week. That's why I
Okay.
knew it wasn't 5.
And quite honestly, you're missing the point, Paul. The point is, people think they need tutors. Why can't we had $250,000 we put to capital improvement. Why didn't we take a little of that and put it to one semester for a couple of extra teachers and see if there's any increase, if the public likes it, if the students' grades go up, if the students like it? Why are we so reticent against trying something different? Yes, this is totally different. We've never done anything. We have athletic and other programs that run after school. So when you say, well, right after school they could do it, sometimes there's a conflict between their athletic, other academic stuff they do after school, and the tutoring. And that's where the scheduling comes
There's a
in.
easy solution to that because other schools are doing it, which is simply that the athletics cannot start their practices until after 3 o'clock because of the extra help time.
So
And
that's-
other schools are doing these.
That's 2:30 to 3, they're gonna get help?
Yeah, they got a half an hour,
Oh, okay. All right.
whatever the
anyhow.
time frame is. I just used the time frame that I knew.
Right now, we have have a motion on the floor right
It's not
now.
gonna fix it.
However,
No.
There's motion on the
Ski-
floor.
excuse me, there's a motion on the floor right now. However, Mr. Tashian, Roger, has made a suggestion. I don't know if you want to modify it or not. If not, there's a motion on the floor. We're going to continue to discuss the motion as discussed, as proposed, or we're going to take a vote on it.
Well, Roger, what's your
My
modification?
suggestion was to keep your motion and ask the administration to come back with a recommendation at the September 24th meeting, based on your request. So it's very similar, but what it's doing is it's giving the administration,
Would that change anything, guys? I mean, I don't wanna waste your time again with it.
I think it changes Vito's vote, and I think it allows some feedback to be had from the administration, and then also for us to digest it a little bit.
If there's any possibility that it would affect the outcome, I am for it. So I will suspend until the 24th, the motion?
No, the motion is amended.
No, I'm suspending it till,
Amending, you're amending, you're asking.
You're amending what I'm
Wait.
oh.
Wait, Roger, then what Michael is saying, I don't want
Oh,
put
sure.
words in your mouth, but try to.
We're not into
is-
motion.
Is basically, I think what he's saying then is he's gonna rescind his motion, but ask for suggestion, suggest to the administration to come back with us to find out whether or not this motion should come forth on the 24th.
I was gonna suspend the motion, not
Suspend.
rescind it. I'm not taking it back, just leaving it
Well, you know
until.
what, let me, again, you know what, I don't have in front of me Robert's rules, I don't know, if you can suspend a motion, I think you actually have to have the motion or
You can
rescind.
suspend it for a date different.
Well, you have a motion and a second on the floor. Either pass it,
It's,
don't
right
pass
now,
it.
it's gotta either
or
be taken
change
or it's
it.
gotta be rescinded.
All right, if there's
Or
anybody
withdraw
in
it,
good
right.
faith-
Or withdraw,
Wait,
you
yeah,
could
withdraw, you got a
withdraw it,
motion.
not when I say rescind, it was rescind, withdraw, you could withdraw the motion, or we have to vote on the motion as it is right now, and
Modify it.
Okay.
So
Modify
that
it how?
input from the administration would be received at the September
Oh, so we're
24th
moving
meeting.
we're moving to go and ask the administration to go and provide us with information so that we could
Feasibility
consider it.
of using this.
So I will withdraw my motion
And put it forward as modified.
and put it forward as, and
We
it's
want feedback from the administration.
What is it?
about the proposal for having teachers, new teachers, hired
Train your teachers.
to teach between like 2:30 and 7:30,
The feasibility of that.
Monday through Friday, to be available to go ahead and teach students, if tutor is bad, in in subjects.
I don't like the word teach, support students.
Supports, assists, whatever. But they should be qualified teachers who are doing this.
I would like to know, because when I vote, because I want to make sure that I know what I'm voting on now, and I apologize, because then there was other things thrown in there. What is the modified motion then?
Is for,
Again, I apologize, but just the
Well,
language
maybe
is
Roger-
specific here.
he suggested it.
Vito?
Why do we need a?
We don't need a motion.
Why do we need a motion?
I understand, because there's a motion on the floor, unless it's with,
Okay,
unless it's withdrawn, because you know what, I'm not gonna come back with Robert's rules that I messed something up.
And you're asking
So I'm asking.
check out the
We're giving him a directive, please, go back to your office.
But until it's withdrawn or modified, there's a motion on the floor that
I
either needs to be
withdraw the
withdrawn.
motion. If it'll
Okay.
help, I withdraw it.
Okay, the motion has been withdrawn.
Okay.
Done. Now, listen, new business, old business?
Yes.
Because unless it's done,
I would-
we can't have.
I would like to congratulate and applaud Dennis Nelson and his staff for our lightning warning went off at 4 o'clock before the football game. And there were 2 teams here with all the fans, couple thousand people, and he made sure that nobody went on the field and stayed in a safe area. And then when he got word from the police department that it was defective and it wasn't resetting, he got some written information from, I think, the head of the police department. I know that he also called over at Paramus, and their lightning thing was clear. before he allowed anybody to go onto the field. And I know that Drew Caruso was the head person, so he got all different. You could see parents going up and asking them and then walking back and forth like that. So for the safety of our children and the parents, I'd like to, congratulate his staff and Dennis Nelson for doing an outstanding job in an adverse condition where, it was clear the sun was out, yet the lightning was going off.
And obviously in light of the situation that happened
Yes.
nearby as well, which
So he followed whatever the correct procedures were to making sure our care and safety of our children and ourselves.
Vito.
This one is admittedly on the latter side of things. First of all, I'd like to give Galileo as much credit as Newton has received in our past dissertation. But most importantly, I would like to suggest that we bring back a good thing that somehow we lost, and that is to find the time, find the vehicle to meet the new teachers. Now, not a back-to-school night. I don't have kids in the system. There is no back-to-school night for me anymore. But I know it was a good thing when we had all the new teachers here, and they were willing and able and very pleasant to come by. And once upon a time, we even shared a light fare dinner, for lack of better words, with them. And at that time, I also would like to meet the new curriculum coordinators. I'm not on the tri-district committee, and I don't even know what this person looks like. So, I mean, I really need an outlet to meet the new people that we have hired, and them to meet us. I mean, they may stop by and see our names on the wall outside the doors there, but I think it's important. I mean, technically, we're their bosses, technically. So, it's out there. Patrick, if you can.
No problem.
I tried to bring this up a little bit at the last meeting. And it relates to the dress code, and I was reminded of it the other day as I was driving down one of the streets, and I happened to see some students walking to school with what I thought were unusually short shorts. And I was just wondering how implementation of the dress code policies have gone so far. I know it's only 2, 3 days, 4 days into the semester, but I've seen that notifications have gone out to parents. I think everybody's aware of what the new policies are. I think they must also be being made aware of what the consequences will be if dress codes are violated. But I would like to see if there isn't a way to get some updates on a periodic basis from the administration as to how this is going, because the consensus that I hear a lot from parents is they would like to be in somewhat of a partnership, so that if they're telling their child, no, you can't wear that to school, they want somebody else here saying, you know what, you gotta either wear one of those big gray sweatshirts or whatever we're giving out these days, or you gotta go home and change. There has to be all of us in this together giving out the same consistent message. So could we get, Patrick, from you, some idea of what's happening now, and maybe if we could get another report in, say, 3 or 4 weeks?
Sure.
Have we had any problems so far just the start here, the first few hot days, or?
I can tell you that in my patrol of the Y over here, I've asked Mrs. Brooks to intervene on 3 separate occasions, and that's the extent of my report at this time.
Okay.
That all occurred on Friday.
I'd also like to discuss this with my fellow board members. We talked a little bit when we were talking about the rankings of wanting to look at data and get updates periodically as to where we stand. And last year, when the physics program was brought in, we were given assurances that as that new program rolled out, we'd be having the tri-district person and the other staff members involved with the program periodically updating things. But sometimes the word isn't getting out to all of us, and I'm sure the public would also want to know, can we look into some type of reporting at each and every meeting as to where we stand? I know maybe sometimes this is going to the curriculum committee, but not all of us are seeing that level of detail. Maybe we can take, different months, like maybe October, we'll look at the physics or the chemistry programs or something like that. Maybe in November, we'll look at the English. But I'd like to study a little bit of our data. I'm getting all these magazines at my house from New Jersey school boards and everywhere else saying, data-driven decisions and all of these things, and these are the questions you should be asking your administrative staff. But I need a basis upon which to look at some of that. And I was wondering, Joe, as you set up the agenda each week, if you could not do this, I think the people in our public are gonna wanna know physics is rolling out well, or you know what, in English, our SAT scores for 2012 went up, or whatever it might be. But can we modify the agenda to include some academic review at every single meeting for the entire board?
Just a comment on, in the superintendent's report, I think we get most of that information.
Not at any level of detail, though, Paul.
Again, though, we can't be going into micromanaging every little
Not want to
piece of
micromanage.
this. Well, that's what it sounds like to me.
I'd like to.
It's just my opinion, which I'm allowed to
I'd like to see the
have.
data. I'd like to see
I
the.
think that Patrick gives us a report about each program that's going on, and he's the head administrator of the school district. Okay, if you have questions, you can ask Patrick those questions
And
that
I
you're
do.
hearing from your friends that might be your concerns. But
I do ask a lot of questions here, Paul. Everybody would probably shoot me if I asked any more. I would like to think, though, that we would get updates. How are things going with the new technology rollout? What are we doing differently this year? How are we using technology to provide feedback to our teaching staff, in a classroom setting? Are the kids catching on? All kinds of different things that we're just not talking about. We talk for a lot of time about a lot of things, but academics has got to be our major concern, and I feel like we can go from meeting to meeting without doing that. And maybe the tutoring has to be the first thing on the list. But I'd like to see us have a portion of every meeting dedicated to monitoring and evaluating where we stand with this district. Because it's not right just to wait every 2 years to see if we went up or down on the ranking. That doesn't
don't
help
we,
us.
isn't our job, Doc, to do policy?
It is our job to legislate
And
through
isn't that our
policy,
only job?
evaluate and monitor. If you look at school boards,
Right?
those are the three things.
And budget, I'm sorry, policy and budget.
That's not
What
true.
you're asking for is information on an ongoing daily basis of how many dress code violations there were.
Not
Or
da-
some of these other things that you want to get involved with.
That's not true.
I think you're wasting all our time,
Paul,
constantly.
I will
I'm sorry.
tell you that school boards talks about three functions. And it literally said legislate, and I believe they mean through policy, but they did not say that. They just said legislate, monitor, and evaluate. I don't know why I'd be getting all these magazines from school boards telling me to come into your district and ask, are the kids staying on top of where they should be, and all those kinds of questions, if it wasn't part of our job. I don't want to micromanage every little decision. I just want to know where we are now, where we plan to go, and how the hell we're getting there.
Well, then if that's something that you really want to put forth, then we can't sit here at 10:22 and still be discussing the regular minutia that has to be discussed at every meeting. Again, we have to start following the norms. And part of following the norms was to go to Patrick and ask questions. Multiple times you hear Patrick and I understand you want the public to be informed. I do get that, but you repeat the same questions you ask Patrick over and over and over again. And it takes a lot of time. It takes time for Patrick to answer those questions, or Patrick and Tom to get those answers to you. And then you do it again here. We all go ahead. When our agendas come home to us, I type my email questions, I stop in the office, I pick up the phone, I ask my questions. When I get them answered and I'm satisfied that I can make an informed decision, and vote my conscience, that's what I do. I feel like a lot of times we can't even get to voting because we're pulling things because you're not satisfied because you didn't get your results that you wanted. And that takes until 10:30 at night sometimes. And now you want to add something on to the agenda where now Pat's going to go ahead or Tom's going to go ahead and give us another overview. I mean, there are nights that we don't get out of here until close to midnight. And that's absurd. And you want to know something? Half the time we get nothing done. So if this is something you want to go ahead and you want to put forth, then you have to rethink how you sit here as a board member. And if you can't do that, then we're spinning our wheels like we do all the time. We never get 2 steps forward, we jump 3 steps back, constantly. So.
Claudia, I think I take the time to ask Patrick questions. I look at what he responds to me, and I also try to bring those issues forward for the rest of the board, because the 9 of us are the decision-making body for this school district.
That.
So when I write to him like I did today and say, you know what, our curriculums in biology and chemistry haven't been updated since 2008, but the standards changed in 2009, and we were already cited in CUSAC for not going forward with the middle school programs to 2012. I brought that forth for a reason, so that the curriculum people who are here, who have the opportunity to be in that committee and to advance some of these things, can start working on that, so that we can start looking at why our end of course results for biology have been ridiculously low for 2 years in a row. I am not doing this to hear myself talk in any way, shape, or form.
Seems that way, because every time we talk about it in there, we get the answers, you come again and bring it up the next time,
Well,
even though we voted on it already.
a different old new matter that was actually, I want to thank the chair of the Community Relations and Information Committee for reminding me that they're relying on the town hall to provide information for, among other things, on tutors. We had a town hall meeting. I think it was relatively well attended, certainly more than we've had at other meetings. And I'd like to suggest that we have another one this, I call it a term or semester, before January 1st, that we can invite the town in. What? Marking period, is that it? Okay. This first marking period or whatever it is? Or am I? And do we need to move, or can I just suggest it, or?
Suggest it, and we bring it back up, that, we figure out a date.
Okay, I'd like to suggest that we hold another one and we give a little more notice this time though. If possible. Because I think it was only like a week.
I don't have a problem. Actually, it was more than a week. Right, because we actually did have, there was some time, there was a few weeks, but.
All right, so then there's nothing, a little longer than a few weeks then.
2004, no. I hear what you're saying. You know what? Yes, if people would like to come and all too, that's part of it and all too, I don't have a problem.
Can I just have a quick, I just want to comment, I think it's a great forum. It is now 10:29 on my computer. We've had public here tonight, and we've been talking quite at length, and I'm not sure if anybody has any interest in speaking, but I give them a lot of credit because I think I would have left by now. But we are not giving public, when they're here, the opportunity to speak. I think this is a public forum, and we're not giving them a public chance.
Well, because we have to go through new business to go through that so that they can actually comment on some of the things that we're talking about, so. So with that then, does anybody here have any other old business or new business they want to bring up? And thank you, Mrs. Almberg. Brings us to our portion where we have public comments. So if anybody would like to make any comments on anything other than the agenda or anything else that's gone on, please feel free to identify yourself and make your comments. And Christine, don't knock people out of the way to get there.
Christine Robertson, Oradell. I have a question as a parent of a new high school student. Today, my son got his laptop, as someone made comment on before. And I've gotten emails from administrators telling us how to handle the laptop and what not to do and what to do if it gets lost and so on. And I got an email to remind me to pay my insurance. But I haven't gotten an email or seen anywhere a description about why it is you provide a laptop. Because I've looked, and maybe I'm not looking in the right place, so maybe you can tell me where I need to look. it's not really clear to me. I know you made a decision to provide laptops to all the students. I'm not sure what my child is supposed to get out of the laptop, and I'm not sure what his teachers are supposed to be doing in regards to the laptops. So is there a written document that tells us that? Because I would really like to know. There are people who think the laptops are just to teach kids how to use computers, which seems crazy, because I think they all know how to use computers better than any of us anyway. So why did you decide to give laptops? I mean, I'm sure there's an educationally based reason. I'd like to know what it is. And I'd like that to be in writing. I'd like to know what you expect your staff to do as well in regards to the laptops. Because I don't know. I really don't know why. You know, if I ask my son, he's going to say, well, I don't know. I'm going to wait for the teacher to tell me what to, you know, that's what his answer is going to be. So I'm not going to even bother asking him. But it's not really clear to me why. Is there interaction between what my child does on the laptop and what the teachers understand? Do they get information from that? I don't know.
Statement. She's right.
I don't think we have anything in writing that actually states, you know, what the purposes of the laptop are. I could be wrong. I don't recall that being a statement saying that we.
We have the goal statement.
What?
Yes.
Goal statement, full statement by the board.
Is that
Is that anywhere that we posted, or is it part of policy or anything, or?
You're not talking about those 5 statements that you took from the national program.
I know we do, like we just did on 47 other items over here. Give me the opportunity to provide you with the information, since
Yeah,
I know where you live and what you do elsewhere.
I don't think you should just provide it to me, honestly. I looked at it,
Well,
you know, I think.
Christine, I want to make sure that it's available for people when they go look, and it has to be there in some way, shape, or form, and perhaps it's just not clearly identified or readily available.
'Cause
Because
I
we've
know,
talked
you know,
about this ad nauseum.
I know back to school night is Thursday, and I know I'm going to sit in, you know, 8 or 9 different classrooms and ask every teacher that question. And I'm betting, just based on prior experience in that type of scenario, that I'm going to get 8 or 9 different answers. So I'd really like to know what your expectation is, and then I can better gauge what kind of answer I get.
Sure.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
My name is Margaret Burns. I live in River Edge. This is the first board meeting that I have attended since my daughter graduated from Riverdale High School in 2000. The reason I came here tonight was because of the New Jersey Magazine article and the standings. I spent a lot of time this summer with friends of other alumni, parents of other alumni, and many of us are very, very disturbed at what happened to our school. What is going on? Tonight, this is very typical of board meetings that went on in the 90s, 80s. I believe one of my first board meetings was a meeting that discussed the retirement or the buyout of Dr. Mary Bartley. So I go way back. I believe Mr. Bonfiglio has been here for the years that you remember me. I used to come to the meetings. Vito, I think you were just beginning to come to the meetings and decide whether or not you were going to jump on the board. And
Look what happened.
I can't tell you the networking that went on this August after this article came out. I have friends who have children that went to this school that are living in Virginia, and everybody has been talking about our ranking now. And it's a real, real concern of the community. We homeowners are concerned with our values. I mean, we don't even want to go there. I mean, this is between the taxes and everything else, the concerns about how this tax per student is going to play out, everything. And this was the cherry on the cake. This was the cherry on the cake. So, Mr. Fletcher, I would really like to see you do something very strongly. I know you said you wrote them a letter and, you know, you tried to contact them. Did you give them 30 days? Did you give them an ultimatum? Give me an answer. Did you contact superintendents in the surrounding districts and discuss with them? I know Ridgewood went down somewhat. There have been variations. I understand that Fort Lee has stated that perhaps it had to do with open enrollment in AP classes. There was some discussion about that in the paper. I'd like more thoughts on that, and I'd like more. You're going to need to do a lot of PR. I mean, that's all I'm going to say. You guys are going to have to do a lot of PR on the school. I feel bad for people like my next-door neighbors who moved in 2 years ago. They bought the house, and their daughter is here. She's, I think, a freshman. And they said, we moved to River Edge because we wanted Riverdale High School. And now, with this coming out, it's not, you know, it's not what you want to hear. It's not what you want to hear when you want to look for, you want to buy in a district and invest in a home. It's not what these young people want to hear. I mean, I've been here 35 years. I mean, we're settled. This is it. But for the young people out there that are looking to buy, and many alumni who want to buy here, you know, they're going to go, what happened? You know, and maybe you could spin it however you want, and you can say 4 years of test scores or whatever. You could do whatever you want. I mean, the idea of the tutoring, that was going on 15 years ago with the tutoring. That's nothing new. Everybody's trying to scramble to get everybody wants a leg up for their kid. It's been going on for years. But right now, the reason I came here tonight is because I want to hear a plan going forward. I want to know what the school is going to do. If, in fact, academically, it's not where it should be, what are you guys going to do? You got to come up with something. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Tom Beltoff, Oradell, New Jersey. I'll just echo this. The problem is, and Patrick, you know this, I have 5 kids, 4 kids have graduated from this school. I've been involved in the school district for a long time. Not as long as this young lady next to me, but I've been quite, you know, very involved. You could say it has to do with rankings. Unfortunately, the world revolves around rankings. Everything is ranked today. I don't like to be ranked, we're ranked. Sports is ranked. SATs are ranked. You know, we toot our horns and we hang the posters out in the lobby about we're number 26, and then we're number 100, we're number, you know, everything is ranked. We can't get past that. To make comments that, you know, they come out with this to sell magazines, be careful about that, okay? This is our school. We love our school. We want our school to succeed. There is some systemic problem here. You know, I listened to Mr. Barnes' explanation. You know what? I don't buy it because every school had to go through the calculations. You can't toot your horn when you're ranked 26 and say don't pay attention to the horn when you're 102. I looked at schools from 1 to 100. We dropped precipitously, you know, and that begs the question. Forget about what the rank number is. Why did we drop so much? And I hear what you're doing, Patrick, you know, but I don't think it's enough. I think this board should be ticked off, okay? This is a direct slap in the face of every townspeople in Oradell and New Jersey. We are the worst dropped school in the ranking, and people pay attention to the ranking, whether we like it or not. And you can't say again, don't pay attention to it when it's bad, but pay attention to it when it's good. Second point, okay? Please do not take this the wrong way. And it's not reflected upon anybody here. But if I was watching this board meeting on TV, I'd say this is why we have a problem. I've never seen such a contentious board, and I don't know what the issue is. It seems like you just all want to fight, okay? You say you want the best for the kids and the best for the education. You really need to sit back and say, are we really accomplishing that? The reason why people don't want to run for the board is because they look at this and say, you hit the nail on the head. It's 10:30. It's 10:38. What have you accomplished in 2.5 hours? And if you can't sit there and say a lot, then you're not doing your jobs, okay? And it's not a paid job, I realize that, but it's a job you ran for to be elected. Stop arguing and try to get some collective agreement here to move this organization forward. We love our school. Let's try to make the best it could be. That's all I ask. Thank you. It's late.
Thank you.
God bless America. September 11th, tomorrow. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else want to come behind the cameras and students? No?
So, can I just make, given that this.
If you could, Michael, thank you.
Given that this district lost, I believe, 3 individuals on 9/11, since tomorrow's 9/11, and it's very close to my heart as a Port Authority employee, that before the board closes for tonight, that they do a moment of silence for at least the members that perished from Riverdale and the other individuals who perished on 9/11. That's it.
I would say yes. I think if we could at this moment then too, it is because there's people within this school, too. We've got a flag of honor up here, if we could just take a moment of silence. Okay, and thank you, Mr. Gardner, for bringing that up, because I know there was some discussion with some of the back-to-school nights and whatnot, so thank you for bringing that up. And again, any last comments? Anything? You have a motion for adjournment? Roger, second, all in favor? Meeting ended at 10:40. Thank you, students.
That's what I said, I
Get
think
your homework
nobody,
done.